Good evening, all. How are you doing? Steck has it right. I am indeed having some technical issues. My my desk microphone, which I didn't actually take with me at all on the you know to the weekend streaming, has just decided to stop working, which is not ideal. So I spent a while messing around. I'm using my headset microphone here, and I've only just twigged as I've pressed the go live button that I'm still in the possession of these lovely headset microphones that I could just plug in and use instead. So let's just do that. That makes a lot of sense. Good to have you all here. Hope you're all doing well. Oh, give me 2 minutes. I'm just going to change this headset over. Test, test, test. All right. I think you should be able to hear me now. And I think you should be able to hear me and have me not sound terrible. Woo! Character creation session for Call of Cthulhu. Sounds fun. Enjoy your evening. Test works. Lovely. How long are they normally? This Egyptian Wi-Fi is terrible. Stabilize with me in 4. I sound like I'm at the bottom of the well. All right, I've definitely got the wrong headset being picked up then, or the wrong. There we go. I've actually set it instead of default. I've set it to actually this headset, so this should now work perfectly. And if it doesn't, I'll be having a word with management. You're in one ear. That's okay. Boom. Thank you so much, Vesper, for being my live tech support. Appreciate that. Now just turn the volume up by 20%. I can absolutely do that. Boom, baby. How are we doing? Let's turn off the monitoring because I can hear myself with these. He's always in one ear for me. Fair enough. I'm sure there's some sort of joke in there that I have not been able to pull together at short notice. All right. Yeah, I resigned myself to just using the microphone on here, which was, I think, a 15 or 20 pound Amazon headset. Haven't yet had a chance to return these really nice sports broadcasting microphones. Huge thanks to Rob again for providing me with these casting suitable headsets. They're the ones apparently that are in use for sports broadcasting. The joke is wireless earbuds. Yes, indeed. But it is good to be back. It's good to be back. I tell you what's not good. I ordered a new desk. I'm just very slowly improving my quality of life here, which is to say that instead of this really old ratty desk that's covered in paint, because I've been painting on it since I moved in here years ago, replacing it with a 60 quid desk on Amazon. However, I ordered it to come between the 3rd and the 6th. Unfortunately, because I ordered through Amazon, unfortunately, they are delivering through Evri, which is not an acceptable thing for me to have to put up with in this day and age. For those of you who don't know Evri, it's also Hermes is the other name you might hear them by. Probably the worst delivery company just you can get here in the UK. Yeah. So they tried to deliver on Friday, or they said they tried to deliver it on Friday. And then I've just got an update saying, your delivery will be attempted today, marked Monday. So in fact, let me just, while I'm sat here, let's just see, is it even going to update there? It says out for delivery, yeah, 12:41 Monday the 3rd of November. Your parcel is on its way to you today. It fucking isn't. It is not.
Change their name to dump the Hermes brand baggage. Yeah, exactly. Every Hermes are just a giant prank. Yeah, terrible. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. All right. Well. If you're here and you haven't already, please do give the stream a thumbs up. Helps get picked up by the algorithm. I have posted, there's a pinned comment up at the top there that you should be able to see, which has the link to the live tier maker voting. I will spam that in the chat every now and then. Just chuck it in as and when I need to. Let's go put that in a couple of times here. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. But we're going to be talking about all of the different spell laws this evening. Now, I'm thinking the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to describe the law, give a little bit of my take on them, not say where I'm going to put them, and then put my vote in towards the end of the 90-second timer there. The reason for that is I'm not expecting everyone to just remember off the top of the head all 28 laws. There are a lot of spell laws here, so... And I also think I've managed to get the ordering correct. If I scroll down, you see how they're all in horrendous ordering. It should, if I understand correctly the way that it works, start with battle and then immediately jump to the correct one. So we're going to see if it works here. I'm very, very hopeful. Very hopeful that it'll work. We'll see how we get on though. Yeah. Anything else to update on before we get started? Almost at 1 million views on the channel. That's cool. That's a cool milestone. Didn't expect to be hitting that in, under 2 years, I think it is. Is it? How long have I been going? Yeah, it must be under 2 years. Coming up 20 months, something like that. So that's neat. It's fun. I don't even know how many videos and live streams I'm on. I think I'm on about 250, something along those lines. I'll have to have a look because I'm sure I'll put a short out about that in the next couple of days or something like that. But yeah, I think that's about it. I reckon maybe we just get into it. Things will pick up as we go along, I'm sure. There's about 20 people ready to get voting, so seems good enough to me. So, Battle Magic. This was, in the before times, probably the best law of Magic, or at least in my opinion, it was the best law of Magic. It is, pre 1.5, Pillar of Fire was absolutely incredible. Fireball, such a reliable, just magic missile. It's the bog standard. It's the benchmark we judge other magic missiles by. Great range, decent strength. No AP, but it's a good number of hits. Fireball, really good, often paired with the Ruby Ring of Ruin, so you can double Fireball. That's where a lot of the strength comes in most of the time. Also, Oaken Shield, the, in my opinion, best ward save spell because it's cast on a 7. It's super reliable. Oaken Shield goes off when Elementalism's Earthen Ramparts often doesn't. It doesn't limit you in the way that Earthen Ramparts does. Yes, it's only on the caster's unit, but that's not bad. You build specifically wanting it, in my opinion. Other than that, Arcane Urgency, incredible spell. Used to be game-breaking, in my opinion, with dragons, but a little bit worse in terms of you can't send single dragons out to just try and punk ranked-up units anymore. So, bit worse than it was. Moving twice, still incredibly strong. Curse of Arrow Retraction and Curse of Cowardly Flight both can be useful at times, but just a couple of long-range hexes that either make people take panic tests, which we know that in this game, panic is not something that's super scary most of the time, and then also reroll ones to hit against a specific unit with ballistic skill shooting. Ballistic skill shooting, also a thing that's not super scary all of the time. So, pre 1.5, probably, arguably the best law of Magic in the game, but definitely took a little bit of a hit. So let's start the voting. We've got 90 seconds to see what we reckon in terms of this one. Interesting. It's not giving me an updated countdown here. I can see that it has gone, but it's not going to give me a timer. So I'm just going to have to guess a little bit. Thank you, Gamora. Tolmy's here. Good to see you. Tizzy says Oaken Shield is crazy in a unit of Black Orcs with a Shaman. Yeah, absolutely. One of the best casters to be able to do it, given that they inherently get +1 to cast if they're in a unit of Orc Boys or just Orcs in general. And then also having great access to magic items as well. The voting is open. It says 17 votes, but I'm only seeing 5 on my screen. I wonder if it's taking a moment to update. Let me just refresh it on my screen, see if anything changes here. No, interesting. Although the timer has refreshed when I hit the refresh button. I don't know. Maybe there's something there which is bugged on the back end, but at least it seems to be working. It's not updating for me, not updating the votes. Congrats, you broke it. I didn't break it. It may be broken, but I didn't break it. Let's try hitting it with a refresh. There we go. It has at least updated the votes there on the screen. I might have to just keep giving it a quick refresh, which is annoying, but it is the end of the world. Oh, I didn't even talk about Hammerhand. It's the only assailment spell you can get in terms of having an assailment as your signature for a core spell lore, which is very powerful. If you're talking something like a Warpfire Dragon or anyone that wants to get in combat and isn't super bothered or doesn't have a great signature spell in their own lore or is taking a lore familiar, Hammerhand, not a bad spell. Alrighty, ended up in A. I think that's probably about where I'd put it. I think now that we've lost one of the better spells in the lore, it's hard for me to argue that it is truly S tier. So I feel like A tier is good. Isn't Necromancy Sig spell an assailment? Is it? It might well be. If it is, it's a terrible one that never gets taken. Let me just double check that while we're here, while I'm making bold claims to the contrary. Necromancy, Dwellers Below. Oh, yes, it's a blast template that scatters D3+1. Yes, you are correct. That is a necromancy. That is an assailment spell. It just in my head, it doesn't exist. There are 2 things in High Elves that are low-key always pulling their weight whenever I have them: Hammerhand and Great Eagles. That's fair. That's fair. Stack says it's only A because it's not an option for Tomb Kings. Yeah. Sucks to be Tomb Kings. I mean, every spell lore is an option for every faction other than dwarves, right? Just make sure that you take the classic wizarding hat, and then jobs are good, and you can take any lore as a level 1 and get stupidity. That's fine. Okay then, cool. So we're moving on to Demonology. Now, Demonology, because we're going to go through these alphabetically for the core laws first. Oh, you know what? Something I should have done is talk about what the tiers mean. S tier is kind of just like, you're always going to take this if you've got the option for it. Obviously, there's going to be some fringe builds that maybe you don't. A tier is just a very, very good. You're going to take it a lot of the time. B tier is not a bad spell lore. You're happy to have it, but it's not, you're not building around it. C tier is, it's there, it's fine, but there's probably better stuff that you could be doing. Realistically, there's better stuff you could be doing. You might be making meme builds with C tier. And then F tier, this actively harms you for taking it or having it. I assume we probably won't see much in the way of main spell laws here, but what we might see are some faction laws where there's just nothing to take. Fairly sure no spell lore is S tier right now, which is quite nice, it says Warp Phoenix. I might have a couple that I would put up there. I've just shifted my expectation of what S tier is, but I think that's not an unreasonable take to have. All right, Demonology. I should actually hold on for a second. Sorry, I pressed play, but let's talk about what Demonology is. So Demonology has a really good signature spell. It's possibly the best magic missile that you can get from a core signature range, in that it's 18-inch range, 2d6 hits, strength 4, AP 1. So it's a really solid signature spell there. It also comes with the combo of Steed of Shadows, which gives an infantry unit fly 12, and obviously you can march with that. And on top of that, you've got Demonic Vessel to give you +1 to strength, attacks, and AP. So this is a lore that we see a lot of at the moment. Big bricks of infantry running around, being buffed to the teeth by Demonic Vessel. The downside of Demonic Vessel is that you lose the strength, attacks, and AP buff of Demonic Vessel only lasts until the end of the turn. It doesn't last through your opponent's turn, so you'll have one really good turn and then one kind of incredibly mediocre turn. Often what I see is people running something like Chaos Warriors with halberds, so they'll charge, they'll use Demonic Vessel, they'll get extra value there, and then on the off turn, they'll use the hand weapon and shield so that they can survive and get through to the next Demonic Vessel turn. A couple of other spells in there that are good. There's a pretty decent assailment spell, Demonic Familiars. 2d6 strength, 2 hits, no armor save allowed. Not bad. Kills elves by the handful. Demonic Vigor, giving you +2 movement, toughness, and initiative. This is nice in that it gives you, obviously, more toughness and initiative, but mostly it gives you +1 movement, which can be very key in terms of going from 4 to 5 inches means that you're getting a 10-inch march or a 15-inch march if you're in marching column. More importantly, can extend the range of your charges as well. Other than that, there are other spells in there. Gathering Darkness is a nerf to leadership and initiative and turning off the Inspiring Presence. So if you wanted to do something like Pseudo Necromancy, you can do. But it's mostly the other spells that super worried about. So I'm going to press play here, and you'll be able to put your votes in. Warp Phoenix says, in like Vamps and Tomb King's Necromancy is S tier, but in Empire and Breath Exiles, it's not at all. So the S tier definition might have a hard time finding its feet. So you just go with, what the best case scenario is. Obviously, Empire have access to a lot of lore, so I'm not necessarily saying that if Empire can take a lore but they don't want to take it every time, that stops it from being a good lore. If it's sort of like an auto pick for the both undead armies, I think that would, in my mind, get it up to the S tier. I really am just going to have to keep refreshing this. That is getting on my nerves, but that's okay. I'm assuming it's not me doing anything there. Elementalism is probably better than Necromancy and Tomb Kings. Depends which version of Tomb Kings. I think for Mortuary Cult, Elementalism makes a lot more sense. In Grand Army, I find Elementalism is fine, but it loses a bit of value. Now that Earthen Ramparts has been... Not Earthen Ramparts, Walk Between Worlds. Travel Mystical Pathways has been nerfed. I find Elementalism a little bit lackluster. Also, they have very high casting values. It is looking strongly into A tier here, though. We've got... I mean, the votes are not tallying correctly, but that's okay. That's not a problem. I will just keep refreshing. So, Demonology looks to me like it's ending in A tier there. And what we'll do at the end is I'll have a look and we can compare my thoughts compared to the communities as we have done in the previous versions. Alrighty then. Next up we've got Dark Magic. Dark Magic also has an Assailment spell as it... Not Assailment, a Magic Missile spell as its signature. It's not a great Magic Missile. I have had it played against me and it has done some damage, but I don't rate it highly. 8, cast on an 8, which is nice. 24-inch range. 3-inch small blast template over the center of a target enemy unit. You risk being hit, strength 3, AP 2. This is better than it was in that you're more likely to see ranked up enemy units. I still find it underwhelming, but it's not, it's better than having no magic missiles, so that is something that you can go for. Very poor at killing single models, so this is not something that necessarily is going to scare a Banshee or anything ethereal like that, where they might have 2 to 4 wounds if we're talking Green Knight. Whereas something like Blue Fire of Siege, for example, you want to really avoid being hit by that if you've got a Green Knight. So, Doombolt exists. We've got some good buffs and debuffs here. This is what Dark Magic is to me, a buff and debuff lore. Word of Pain, 18-inch hex, casts, quite a high casting value. -1 to your strength and toughness that can be cast on something in combat. So this is probably the best offensive / defensive buff in that you hit them harder and they hit you back with less power. Pretty good one there. There's also Battle Lust, which is a 12-inch range enchantment. Gives your friendly unit Frenzy and Hatred, which is obviously incredible in terms of turbocharging them. If you get stuck in combat, this is going to, suck that you've got it. You can't cast it into combat. And even if you did, you want to get Frenzy on the charge. You want to get Hatred on the first round of combat. So it wouldn't even matter. But it is very strong. You can take a unit that's underwhelming and make them good, or you can take a unit that's already good and get them to the point of maybe being able to crack Graveguard, for example, with a big Bretonnian Knight bus. Other than that, 2 assailments, both of them are fine. I don't think either's exciting. There's a Flame template, and then there's a Strength 3, Multiple Wounds 3 assailment spell, which is a single hit. Both of them feel a little confused about what they want to do. I guess Stream of Corruption isn't confused, but it's just not super exciting in my eyes. So those are the things there. There's everyone's favorite remains in play Vortex Phantasmagoria, which if you put it down in 2 turns, someone might have to charge you because they become impetuous. So that's fine. Infernal Gateways, pretty nice as well. Being able to cast it on characters and then you basically do what old TMP was to them, which is pick them up and put them within 12, not wholly within. So if they've got a large base like a dragon, you can get them pretty far, and you can just pull them out of combat. I had this at the last tournament that I was at a couple of weeks ago. Was it the last tournament I was at? Yeah, I think it was. Yes, 2 weekends ago. I ended up with my Duke with Killing Blow in combat with the enemy Orc Warboss and Wyvern, who then got Infernal Gatewayed out of combat twice before I got to attack because I was overrunning into him. So yeah, a very valuable spell there, and I'm going to open up the voting for Dark Magic. Okay. Thinks you should run Questing Knights and Winged War Sphinx mounts though. Can I just tell you what to think like usual? No, this week you've got to do the thinking, unfortunately. This is the want to see what the community takes are, and then at the end we can compare them to mine and see who is correct. You know, the advantage is there's a lot more of you, so you're more likely to be right, surely. Beastman Magic is S tier, prove me wrong. I guess we'll have to find out when we get there. How is it looking for Dark Magic? It's sitting around B tier. Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with B tier. I like it in specific builds, but it's not something that I'm taking as like a go-to for sure. It has some interesting applications though. For example, you can take this and you can turn Dragon Princes into a unit that actually hits really hard. 3 attacks at strength 5, AP 2, all of them re-rolling hits. The horse is getting 2 attacks each. You can Word of Pain debuff the enemy unit that you're going into. Suddenly that strength 5 is less of a downside. If you take Dark Magic, you have a plan before the game begins and you're taking the lore familiar with it. Yeah, 100%. This is definitely a lore familiar lore, for sure. Got a big day of diving tomorrow. Ooh, very exciting. Not something you can roll. Yeah, I agree. It definitely has to be a lore familiar lore. Which takes us to another lore that I personally feel is a lore familiar lore, because there is a lot in here that I'm not excited to hit. Now, that's not to say that the lore is bad. I think there's a lot of stuff that's very good in here, in fact, but you do probably want to take lore familiar with this. Now, Stormcall is a hex that I've never seen a single person cast. It's a 12-inch range hex, so already really hard to get off. This is the signature spell. -1 to the movement and initiative characteristic of the unit you cast it on, and it ends all other hexes on that unit. Woo! That feels not good. We've got a pretty underwhelming Assailment in Flaming Sword. We've got Plague of Rust, which is obviously fantastic. 21-inch range hex, which is probably way too long for it. It synergizes well with shooting armies. Maybe you should have to commit a little bit more to get value out of this. But it gives you enemy units that are -2 to their armor value. And you can also cast it into combat. Really good hex there. We've got Earthen Ramparts, which is 15-inch range. High casting value, gives a target unit a 5 at ward save, and they count as being behind a defended low linear obstacle if they are charged. They can't march or charge themselves, but that is very solid. So they can basically dragons lose their stomps into them, models only get to make a single attack into them, yada yada. Very, very strong there. TMP, not as good as it used to be. Now you have to have your unit wholly within 12 of where you're casting it in, but it is like I pick up a unit and then put them down wholly within 12 of where they were. Still just very strong in fantasy, frankly. It's a little bit worse than it probably should be at the moment, because we're in a very shooting-heavy meta. But just good to have in general. And then finally, Wind Blast. A pretty decent, strength 5, so high strength, AP 1, D3+3 hits, but it also makes the unit that you hit give ground, whether or not you do any wounds. So just a pretty good magic missile there. There is a Magical Vortex, which is probably the best damaging magical vortex in the game now. Summon elemental spirits. It's a long range, you can cast it within 15 inches of where you are. Dangerous terrain that blocks line of sight. Moves D6 inches in a random direction, and it only ever hits enemies. So it's D3+3 strength 4 hits or AP1 that never hits yourself. So if you're looking for a vortex damage spell, summon elemental spirits might well be it. I think it's pretty solid there. All right, let's open up the voting for elementalism. Where are we thinking? Phil says, could you cast it on yourself? I assume you're talking about the Stormcall. I wish you could cast hexes on yourself. Mostly because in Troll Magic, the hex that gives an enemy unit stupidity, you could combo with Ravenous Recourse, and then you'd be able to move extra inches if you made yourself stupid. That'd be fun. Hamsfan says 0 for 3 for me so far. I see an unbroken run ahead. As in, you've put a different, like, you voted differently to the community. Is that what you're saying? So far, sitting in A, but it is pretty split. There's a lot of S's and a lot of A's there as well. Tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just adjust the screen cap here, because if I have to keep refreshing it, why not just make it so it goes... Ooh. Get that out of here. Go up to here. On the fly. And then get it down to F tier. And that just about works. Vesper says, I have a hot take. The most skill-intensive spell in this lore is Wind Blast, and it's amazing. It is pretty damn amazing. Obviously, over the weekend, I don't know how many people tuned in, but if you saw the coverage, there was a unit of Jade Lancers that was Wind Blasted off the tabletop, which is, frankly, more, exactly what they deserve. Screw Jade Lancers. All my homies hate Jade Lancers. So, Wind Blast, a very, very good spell to have in certain situations. Okay, we're on to High Magic. Now, this is a lore that other people definitely value more highly than me, so I'm going to try and be not biased in my... because I don't value what it does. Drain Magic, I think, is one of the main reasons that people like this lore. There are two spells that people love. Drain Magic is one of them. I don't like Drain Magic, however, WTC players use it. So, it can't be objectively bad. I just don't agree that it's good. I'm probably wrong here because enough players really like it. So maybe that's my toxic trait. That's my thing that I just refuse to be correct about. I dislike Drain Magic. Anyway, it's a self-range hex, which is cast on 9, remains in play. Enemy wizards within 24 inches of the caster's model increase the spell's casting value by 2. So it's, in a way, it's almost like Magic Resist in a blanket, a 24-inch bubble of -2 to cast, which is solid. The big problem with it is remains in play, so they will get 2 chances to dispel it. You can cast it from outside of their dispel range, and then you move into their dispel range, but if you move into their dispel range at the start of the turn, they get to try and dispel it with an actual dispel. Yeah, I don't love it. I don't love it. The other spells, Walk Between Worlds, this is a high casting value. Self-range Conveyance spell, so you can't cast it if you charge. You get Remains in Play. Remains in Play. You get Reserve Move and Ethereal until your next starter turn sub-phase. So basically, if you want to do shenanigans where you don't die to typical damage, Walk Between Worlds is an interesting way to build around that. There's a big magic missile, large 5-inch blast template, that does scatter D3 plus 1 inches. If it hits anything, it's strength 4, AP 2 hits with flaming. That's not bad. Again, I don't love the blast templates that scatter, but I think this is one of, it's okay. We've got larger units. It's an 18-inch range spell. It's a large blast. It's probably fine. We have a second blast template here in Tempest, which is a magical vortex. Casts on a 9, range 12, remains in play, 3-inch blast template. It doesn't move, which I really like. This is my favorite spell in the lore. It's dangerous terrain, and when you're within 6 inches of the template, enemy units treat open ground as difficult terrain and difficult terrain as dangerous terrain. What does this do? This means you don't lose to Fanatics, because as soon as they hit terrain, they die. You just put one of these down where the Fanatics want to go, boom, they can't come out. They just immediately get squished. Is Lewis listening to this? Yeah. Where's my tea? Is Lewis listening to it? Yeah, absolutely. I'm feeling a little bit hard done by. I haven't had a single tea since I came back to Nottingham. I'm going to have words with the management. Disgraceful behaviour, Corporeal Unmaking, an assailment which is D3 strength 5 hits, no armor or regen saves allowed. That's not bad. D3 is a little bit swingy, but I think the quality of it is pretty okay. Fury of Cain, +1, you get extra attacks that can be cast on a unit in combat. Fine. lasts until end of turn, but that, damage spells tend to be. I don't mind that. The thing that really bugs me about this spell lore, Shield of Safri, target friendly unit gains a 5-up ward save. You can't put it, it ends any other enchantments on the unit, so you have to sequence your spell casting correctly. But it's only until the end of turn, and that, for me, kills Shield of Safri. If this was just, you can cast a ward save on an allied unit, they get it until your next start of turn, High Magic probably goes up to S tier for me. But, yeah, I think it's lacking. I'm going to open up the votes now. I'm just really disappointed that, for me, it feels like there's a lot of very conditional spells in here, but you have to put your spell lore on your army roster. So you're kind of just stuck with the spell lore that you've gone with. Shield of Safri is the best spell in the game. It can be used when you charge. Oh, okay, I see. There was some sarcasm there. High is the Swift Army Knife lore. It handles problems, just not every problem at the same time. Yeah, but it's lacking a mainstay spell, I think, to make it something that I'd want to take every time. You could argue that Walk Between Worlds is that, but I don't love it just in terms of how hard it is to cast. Cranberry thinks High Magic is completely trash. I don't know that I entirely disagree. I don't know that I agree with that, but I don't hate it as an idea. Mediocre element. It's fine. It's it's not as good as Hammerhand in my opinion, but it's better than Volzun. No, not Volzun making. Whatever the one that High Elves can take. Yeah. It just needs something else, I think. Amy says Drain Magic for on a Wizard hat is the best use for it, which is fantastic if you're playing an army that is already stupid across the board, because then there's no downside to the Wizard hat, other than the 50 points you have to pay for it. Yeah, fantastic. Quick jump in here. Seems to have picked up a little bit. If you're here and you haven't already, I would appreciate a thumbs up on the stream. Helps get picked up by the algorithm. All of that good stuff means that more people can see, more people will be able to get in and do the voting. I'm just going to spam the link as well. If you're recently joining, you can click that link and join in with the live voting. Okay. Getting back to it. Let's go to the next spell lore, which is Illusion. Now, Illusion, in my mind, is something that you want to take with a Lore Familiar, which is fine, because obviously Lore Familiar has now been clarified that you can't take a signature spell from your own spell lore if you're something like High Elves, where you've got your own spells. But it has a very good signature spell already. So, we're going to start off with Glittering Robes, with Glittering Robes being -1 to hit on the unit that you're in. Just a great spell to start off with, given that there's a lot of high-value ballistic skill shooting in the meta, looking at Yucathay. -1 to hit is really nice there. Tap into a wood, be skirmish, you can start to stack those bonuses, but also just using it defensively if you're trying to win sort of like combat, if you've got some sort of Death Star, it's really nice to have. On top of that, we've got some absolute bangers in here. You're normally looking for 3 and 6, Column of Crystal, a large blast template that blocks line of sight and is impassable. This thing is a nightmare to deal with if you're a dragon player. Speaking of, Miasmic Mirage. Also, it's a Hex. The unit that you put it on, 15-inch range, so not a bad range on a Hex here. -2 to move, cannot march, cannot charge, and it ends other Hexes on the unit, but just put this on first. It's the really important one to go for. Those are the key things to go for. However, there are also 2 other really, really good spells in here. Shimmering Dragon, Conveyance spell, cast on a 8, 12-inch range. Characters only. If they're not fleeing and they haven't already moved, they gain fly 10 until the end of the turn. So if you want to, maybe you've got this paired with some Banshees, or just you want to get a character out of somewhere, really solid to have. Finally, Spectral Doppelganger. A single enemy unit the caster is engaged in combat with suffers 2d6 strength hits, resolved using the characteristics and special rules of the caster and any weapon they carry. Those of you who were watching Game 4 over the weekend, Nick was of the opinion that Spectral Doppelganger is a busted spell. I don't agree, but I do think it's a very, very fun spell, and I think it's strong in the right circumstances. So I think there's a lot going for Illusion there. I'm going to press play, and you're going to be able to put your votes in. Colin McChrystal, the GOAT. Oh, yeah. Oh, good. You got an ad as soon as Ed started spouting the hard sell to like and subscribe. Yeah, the hard sell. As we all know, liking and subscribing is a heavy financial penalty. It's a very swingy spell. Yes, that's true. I think Spectral Doppelganger is the weakest aspect of the lore in terms of the spells you want. I didn't mention there's a spell that makes enemies stupid, and there's also a magic missile that they take a leadership test. And if they fail the leadership test, it's an okay magic missile, or a decent magic missile, I should say. And if they pass it, which they're likely to do, it's a bad magic missile. I think Illusion is good, but with no available ward save, I always find my armies are quite glass cannony. That is fair. You're definitely leaning on the -1 to be hit. That is something that we're going to be looking at as a major tool here. It is an absolute classic to see in the Mortuary Cult lists, where you're trying to kill them at range, and you really don't want to get run down. It's great at stopping you from being run down. This is, in my mind, maybe even better than Elementalism for gun lines, or mobile gun lines. Or less mobile gun lines is what I'm trying to say. But it is a very solid spell. Let's have a look at where it is sat. Currently sat in S tier with 8 votes, beating 6 out and 6 in A and 6 in B. I think S tier, having Illusion as S tier there, not a bad one. I think it's pretty solid. Glittering Robes is what make this lore S tier really probably the best signature in the game from the role laws. I agree. I think it's probably I think it's on another level. I don't think there's. You could argue that the Demonology signature spell, just having a magic missile on tap, is very good as well. So maybe those are the two, depending on what you value in your list and playstyle. But yeah, the -1 to hit, just a flat -1 to hit against everything, really good. All right, Necromancy. Now, there are a few armies that can take this, but there are 2 armies that do, and that's Tomb Kings and that is Vampire Counts, and it's definitely more leaning towards a Vampire Counts list, which makes sense. What do we got? We've got a bad assailment spell in the Dwellers Below. I'm not even going to read it, just trust me, it's terrible. It's just not good. However, the rest of the spell lore is at worst decent, and at best disgusting. We're going to start off with Unquiet Spirits. This is a range 15 magic missile, 3d6 strength 2 hits, no armor saves. The Elf Killer. This thing will ruin, absolutely ruin a unit of Dragon Princes. We've got Spectral Steed. Cast it on an infantry character. They gain Ethereal and Fly 10. It's a remains in play spell that casts on a 9. Banshees can fly out 10 inches or 11 inches because of an extra Mortis engine. Scream 8 inches, fly back. They've got a 19-inch threat range with a disgustingly good spell that really keys off leadership. Speaking of leadership, 2 debuffs to leadership in this lore. We've got Spiritual Vortex, which is a remains in play, cast on a 10, which you're likely to get off because you're going to have some sort of casting bonus. But it means that even though your opponent's able to dispel it with their wizard because they're going to be in range of the vortex, they're still not super likely to because they have to roll a 9 on the dice to get rid of it because you have to beat the 10 with your usual +2 to dispel. Needing a 9, pretty unlikely there. We've also got Spirit Leech, which is a targeted spell. Both of them give Turn Off General's Leadership, which is not only good for things like Caskets, although we don't really see Caskets for Tomb Kings doing damage anymore. We mostly see them using Lighter Protection. But really, it's very good for Wailing Dirge, the screams that Vampire Counts bring. Both of them turn off Inspiring Presence. One of them gives -1 to Leadership, the Spiritual Vortex, in a 6-inch bubble, and 8-inch bubble, sorry. I don't know why it's 8 inches, that's too big. And then Spirit Leech is a targeted -2 to a single unit. Both incredible. Something that people don't even really talk about in terms of how good these are. There are so many leadership tests you have to take when you're playing against undead. Fear tests. Do you want to be -1 to hit that unit of Graveguard that you think mathematically you might be able to kill? Just about. Alright, cool. -1 to hit. Stack it with Glittering Robes. Cool. You've Helm of Commandmented, your weapon skill 6. I'm hitting you on 6s now because you've layered 2 minuses to hit there with Fear and Glittering Robes. You've failed combat. You're more likely to run and get cut down because, again, your leadership's lower. It's just very, very consistent. Also, Deathly Cabal, 6 of ward save for the unit, and upgrades their Fear to Terror if they have it, which, obviously, undead all do have Fear there. So I think this is a very, very complete lore. I'm not even going to try and hide my bias. I've put it in S tier immediately. Elizabeth can take Necro too. Huh. That's true. It's been a long time since I've put a slam on the tabletop. A long time. Let's have a quick refresh, see what it's looking like from the start. Yeah. We've only got 3 votes in so far. It's going to take a little while to update, but we're already in necromancy. Oh, it's kind of updating a little bit. I wonder why this is so terrible. Why is Teammaker just being so rude to me? Understandable, keep them in the box. Yeah, if I had Lissaman, I probably wouldn't be taking them to many events at the moment, which is a shame because they're a cool army. I do like them. If you're here and you are not in the tier maker to have your voice be heard, have your vote be counted, make sure you click the link because, as we all know, the only thing more important to vote in than the elections are these tier lists because reasons. Don't ask me what the reason is because I don't know. There are fireworks going on outside, but I'm hoping, given that these mics are deliberately designed to pick up noise near my mouth as opposed to elsewhere, hopefully you won't be able to hear them too loud. Otherwise, I'll have to get up and close the window, which sounds like a lot of work, frankly. Necromancy, yeah, 12-4 in the votes there. That is pretty hefty in terms of where it's going to end up. Okay, how do I Oops, go back to this. How do I untap here? If I just press play, is it going to... Ooh. I hope I didn't skip. I'm now realizing that I don't know how to go back to the other lore here. I hope I haven't skipped the lore of War. I really hope I haven't skipped it. I'm just going to press the button and see if that fixes it. May have been a little bit of a skill issue there. But that's fine, because what I can do is I can just draw it on if needs be. What I will do is, let's make a poll here, because I think I actually might have skipped it, and I'm going to put S, A, B, C. I can only do 4 options. It's not an F tier lore, so I'm not even going to put that in there. Yes. So you don't have to vote yet. I'm gonna talk about it before we do anything else because I think I might have skipped it there. War Magic comes with an assailment spell that scatters and can hit yourself. This is very orky. I'm not necessarily going for it. It does have a very good magic missile, Vindictive Glare, 21-inch range, only casts on an 8, strength 7, no armor save, and it's D3 wounds. So this is nice to help you finish off dragons with those Doom Divers. Hand of Mork or Gork, so you can pick up a model and get them out of combat. I said earlier in the video that it was Dark Magic that Infernal Gateway got the Wyvern out of combat. Of course it wasn't. It was Hand of Mork or Gork, whichever. Bad Moon Rising, hexing weapon skill initiative. Not bad. Not the best hex that you can get if you're a green skin. Evil Sun Shining. Rerolling hits of a 1 and the AP of your weapons is improved by 1. This thing is fantastic. When you're rolling as many dice as you are with Orcs and Goblins, getting that level of consistency is really solid. Here we go. Self-range enchantment increases your charge range by D3 and increases the charge declarable range by 3. And then finally, Foot of Gork. This is a random moving large blast template that will kill more orcs than it kills anything else. But orc players love it. And who am I to deny them the joy in life that they have? So I'm going to press start and just see what happens here. What if I just refresh the screen? Oh, excellent. I didn't actually break it. You can vote on Tier Maker and put in your vote there. I guess I just needed to hit the refresh button and not worry too much. That said, S tier winning in the chat. I don't know if that's an accurate representation. I feel like this is we have a vocal greenskins contingent. I'm wondering if there's some lobbying going here. Best spells are random spells. Fun spells are random spells. What's great about War is you don't need a lore familiar. You very rarely get more than 1 bad spell. That's fair. Nice lore for a wizard hat for extra randomness. True. For as much better in 1.5, it's a big roadblock and not too hard to limit hitting yourself. Yeah, that's fair. It's very much out of the way that I like to play, but I enjoy seeing it on the table. No spell is useless, says Amy. Yeah. How, how dare we malign the the good word of war magic? Something to remember is obviously this is Orcs and Goblins taking this lore. Orcs and Goblins do not have a spell familiar, so you are capped at 4 spells, or 3 if you're on a secondary character. And lore familiars do cut you out on taking some very, very good signature spells. So where are we sat? We're sat in S tier here. That's honestly kind of blowing my mind. We get to the end of that one. I think it ends up in S tier. Did I vote on that one? I didn't. I was so bamboozled I didn't even vote. For me, it probably sits in A tier, but the people have spoken. I've gone very heavy on S tier. No, I didn't put elementalism there. All right, maybe we're not going to compare tiers at the end because I feel like either I'm an idiot or the website is broken. One of those two is true, and I don't want you to weigh in on which that is because my feelings will be hurt. All right. All right, we have got the War Magic lore there, and that takes us to the end of our 8 laws of magic. So this is the more time-consuming bit. We're now on to the faction signature spell laws. We're going to go through these in alphabetical order, and then when we get to the end of those, we're going to go with the 3 or 4 extra laws of magic that have been added to the game in terms of the arcane journals. So we're basically just going to go through alphabetically for all of the things that you had 2 years ago, and then when we get to the Arcane Journals laws, that's when we'll go back to chronological order. Alrighty then. We wouldn't use the website if it was broken. What's that to do with? Yes, I see. Cool. So, we're moving on to Beastmen. Now. You might have some opinions about this lore because there's a certain spell in here that synergizes with a certain magic item, and it would be disingenuous to not talk about the two. So, we've got 3 spells in the Lore of Beasts. This is the Beastman lore. We've got Devolve, which is a hex, not a hex, sorry, a magic missile. It's basically Wailing Dirge, but much worse because you don't have access to debuffing leadership and it's a spell, so it's easier to stop. The enemy target unit takes a leadership test. If failed, they lose a number of wounds equal to the amount by which it failed the test. This is fine. I would be tempted to take this if Viletide didn't exist. Speaking of Viletide, same range, 15-inch range. The target enemy unit suffers 5d6 strength 1 hits with no armor save permitted. This combos with an item called Hagtree Fetish. It is very cheap. 30 points, I think. Either 30 or 35, I can't remember. But it allows you to reroll all wounds that you make with magic missiles, which is obviously incredible. You take a lore that you can get a second magic missile in, you try and roll that, like, for example, you might be going for something along the lines of Wind Blast. You've got 2 magic missiles ideally, rerolling all of your wounds there, and Viletide can do real damage. It can, it could theoretically one-shot a dragon, but you average out something like 5 or 6 wounds to a dragon with no armor save. So they get to take their ward and regen, but very, very punishing there. Finally, there's Mantle of Gorok, which is a self-cast enchantment, and the cast against plus d6 modified to their strength and attacks. However, if a 6 is rolled, they lose the attacks and they instead lose a single wound. Now, something to remember is that you are weapon skill 5 with 2 attacks base. If you are a Beastman, Great Brave Shaman, you also have an item that can either be used as a great weapon or a 5-up armor save. So Mantle of Gorok, better here than it would be on most wizards, but you don't see many people taking it because Viletide is so good. I'm going to start the voting here, see what people reckon. Black Maul and Mantle, surely. I took Black Maul on a wizard, and I didn't even bother taking Mantle of Gorok. It was just good enough already. I didn't feel like I needed additional output. Well, I did, I wanted it at range more than anything else. Let's see how we're looking early on. Wow, 100% S tier so far. People have been bad touched by Viletide, that's for sure. Can you get this on a Doom Ball in the Bloodhurt? You can't, unfortunately. However, the Doom Ball can take battle magic, so you've got a little bit of play there. Beastmen deserve some more time in the sun. I like where Beastmen are. They feel like solidly A tier to me. They're a good army with good builds that can compete in the current meta, but they're not one of the armies that you look across the table and go, ooh, I don't know how to beat this. Or at least that's my perception of them. It's just as fun as a combo to Theorycraft. Yeah, yeah, 100%. I probably should do it at some point. Like, I'm thinking about doing a Bloodherd chariot spam list in the TSN square-based comp, because you get 2,600 points of Minotaur Bloodherd. I was like, what if you just take 5 character chariots with ward saves and, go beat some people up? Cheers on the new headset. The audio coming in real nice. Richard, I wish this was mine. I borrowed it for this weekend from Rob, TSN Rob. And unfortunately, I will be giving it back. This is a case of my normal microphone not working. But if the audio is coming in that nice, what I might have to do is just ask him where he got it and make it something that I look to get in the not too distant future. Although I do then also need an external audio capture device as well. Yeah, whatever. I can think about that as a stretch goal. It can be on the list. I'll need some sort of headset like this if I'm going to continue doing the live coverage, which I would like to do, so it's probably something I need to think about. Aren't you max 10 attacks though with Mantle and Maul, so it's about overkill? You're thinking too small, Tonk. You should also be taking Demonology for Demonic Vessel to get the +1 strength attack and OP, so then you're at 11. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Alright. So, we are on to the Law of Hashut, and this is a legacy faction, which means that none of the casting values got adjusted when 1.5 rolled around, which means their very, very good signature spell became kind of less good because it's very hard to cast. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Storm of Ash. It's a hex that casts on a 10. Self-cast range. All enemies within 9 inches of the caster's model are -1 to hit. This is really, really good, and it was used a lot comboed with, a character on a Taurus and then a Black Orc on a Wyvern with a 2-up armor save and stacking an extra -1 to be hit in there, and that was quite a strong way to play, if you were playing Chaos Dwarves. Now it's cast on 10 still. I think it's a little bit hard to get off, but it's still a very good spell. It's just unreliable. Flames of Hashut is a D3 +1 strength 4 hits at AP 1 flaming attacks assailment that casts on a 9. I look at this, I look at Hammerhand, and I go, I feel hard done by with Flames of Hashut. Finally, there is the Curse of Hashut, which is a magic missile, cast on a 9 with an 18-inch range, only targets enemy characters. However, it can hit characters that are in units. Unfortunately, I think it gets around Lookout Sir. I don't know. I'd have to look into that because it's not actual hits. No, it is. It would take hits. Maybe you can Lookout Sir them. Anyway, that said, it's an odd spell. It's a toughness test. If you pass it, it's only D3 strength 2 hits with no AP. If the toughness test has failed, it's D3 +2 strength 5 hits with no armor or regen permitted. Ward saves can be attempted as normal. This is a very good Banshee killing spell. That's the main use for it that I see, because you can target them even though they are going to be screened by the units that they're next to. They're ethereal. No one's really bringing, spirit hosts for Banshees to join. So, yeah, you're pretty safe here to just whack them in. C for Chaos or D for Dwarves? Unfortunately, there is no D. But yeah, let's have a look at the Law of Hashut. I think, genuinely, this was up in A tier for me, pre-1.5, but I just think it's so hard to get Storm of Ash off now. I worry it's a little bit too difficult to cast. Brass Cleaver or Scimitar of Skultar work pretty well with the Mantle. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. How is he still doing this without it? I know, Sam. This is some sort of war crime. It is disgusting. I will be having words with my booking agent. I feel undervalued. How am I going to be able to cope? How am I going to be able to cope? Let's have a refresh here. How are we looking on the Law of Hashut? Hashut. Not a huge amount of voting going on for the Law of Hashut. I guess people not having too strong an opinion on it, to be honest.
The Tahit debuff aura is a hex. As a buff, can elementalism signature remove?
I think that came through on stream, but I didn't hear it. Okay, let me try and fix that. Thank you, Amy, very much. The Tahit debuff aura is a hex. As a buff, can elementalism signature remove? Oh, I didn't even realize. we've finally found a use for Stormweaver. Of course, you do have to be within 12 inches to cast it, but they have to be close to you to be using it. So, you know what? That's a very good point. I guess you can use the Elementalism Stormweaver to remove Storm of Ash. God, that's such a brutal interaction. You'd be so sad if that's if that's what happened to you. All right, I should be able to hear the lovely Welsh voice of the TTS now. Perfect. Ended up in B. I think that's fair. I don't know that it's C. Or actually, maybe it is C. Actually, I don't have the strongest of opinion on it. Storm of Ash was horrid in 1.0. Is it less common now? Yeah, it's just too hard to cast. It's cast at a 10. It's very unrealistic to get it off consistently. But even in 1.0, Chaos Dwarves weren't really a contender, so it was one of those where when you came up against it, you're like, man, this is really good, and then you see Chaos Dwarves do not very much at tournaments anyway. Alrighty then, we're up to the Law of Demons. There are 2 Chaos Laws, and one of the Chaos Laws is better than the other one. That's maybe not fair to say, actually. There is some stuff in here that is good. So, Law of Demons comes with 4 spells. None of them are unmarked. They're all assigned to a single god, and there are 2 spells for Tzeentch, because obviously Khorne can't cast spells. You've got Plague Wind, Demons and Nurgle, which is very fun. So it's a Vortex that casts on a 7. Higher casting value is not a downside for Vortex spells. I'd like to see it have a higher casting value, I think, so it's more likely to stick around. But anyway, it's a small 3-inch blast template within 12 inches of the caster. It moves D6 in a random direction in every start of turn subphase. Any unit that it moves over apart from Demons and Nurgle are -1 to toughness, and it doesn't say to a minimum of 0. So you can kill units by dropping their toughness to 0, which is very funny. And I have seen people do it. So, yeah, I have seen people do that, which is pretty fun. Hard to pull off, very random. If it works, amazing. Slaanesh have a 12-inch range hex that casts on a 10, remains in play. It turns off enchantments on them, so this is the main reason to use it. And it also gives them stupidity. The stupidity is kind of whatever, but if you can turn off any enchantments on them, that is really nice. So turning off the ward save, for example, if they've got Oaken Shield or Earthen Ramparts, is very good. Then there's Tzeentch, there's Pink Fire, which, unlike Blue Fire, which you have heard of, is bad. D3+3, Strength 3 hits at AP 0 with Flaming Attacks. I'm just not taking that realistically. However, Gift of Mutation is pretty darn solid. This is the other Tzeentch spell. It's a Hex, only a 12-inch range spell, but it is cast on an 8, you get 1 of the following. Cast on a 12, you get 2 of the following. You reduce the stats of one of the following 3 stats by D3 on an enemy unit: weapon skill, strength, and toughness. So if you're casting it on a 12, you can hit strength and toughness, or weapon skill and strength, whatever you want to go for. This is really good. Just debuffing toughness is usually going to be very good, or debuffing strength is the other one that is obviously going to matter a lot. You can do weapon skill if you're comboing this with like an illusion caster, but then we're sort of getting into maybe slightly, you're trying to force a combo too much. However, really good spell. And you can take this on your core Pink Horrors if you take them, and there's a banner to give them so that they cast it at +4, which is pretty solid. So let's start the voting here for the Law of Demons. Nurgle Mutation are good. Slaanesh is too high, and Blue Fire sucks. It's Pink Fire. Blue Fire is great. Pink Fire sucks. I like Slaanesh as a conditional back pocket pick that I'm probably never picking, but being able to turn off their ward save is the big thing. Khorne cast Fist. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Alright, let's see what we're saying with Law of Demons down in C tier. I think that's maybe a little bit harsh. Gift of Mutation is genuinely very, very good. The rest of them are kind of conditional or funny, but Gift of Mutation is very solid. This takes a massive hit for being in Demon, surely. No, I wouldn't say so, because you'd say, how does this compare to the other options that you can take as Demons? Cast on a 10, though. Oof. Yeah, absolutely. But, like, if you had a chance to turn off the ward save of an enemy unit, I think you're pretty happy to take that, especially with how people are playing more Bricks of Infantry and often supporting them with ward saves. Or other buffs, depending on what they go for. Your opponents put Courage of Anarian on a unit? Not anymore. That's one of the things you can do. That is one of the options available to you. 1 vote for F tier. I don't know if we've had any other votes for F tier for any other faction. Maybe I just missed it, but yeah, it is. It is one of the options. Okay, that takes us to the end of Demons there. So Demons ending up in A tier feels wrong, but the people have spoken, so that is where we are. Fair enough. As a reminder, if you are here and you're not in the tier maker already, I will just post that in chat a couple of times now. You can join the link, get your say, make your votes seen and known as I go. And also, if you're here and you haven't already, give the stream a thumbs up. Helps me get picked up by the algorithm. All of that good stuff. Also, do coaching if you want to do personal improvement of Warhammer. That's about enough of a plug, I think. That'll do. Let's move on to some more spells. We're now on the Lore of Naggaroth, which is the Dark Elf lore. And this is one that I'm frankly kind of underwhelmed by. It's fine. It exists. There is one spell in here that I see people take that I don't take. But unlike the difference between High Magic and this lore, I don't necessarily think that this is worth going for. There are 2 spells. Cursing Word is a 12-inch range hex, remains in play. Target enemy unit suffers -1 to weapon skill or ballistic skill chosen by the casting wizard, and it also turns off other hexes on the unit. So this is one of the only ways that you can debuff something like a Shabti, which is fine. So I have taken it when I've been running Double Dragons into Mort Cult, but this was pre-1.5. You know, this was a case of just trying to debuff something. Because it remains in play, your opponent has 2 chances to dispel it, which is why I think it's not very good. And then we've got Black Horror, which is a casting value 9 Vortex, 18-inch range, so it's a good range there. You get a 5-inch blast template. It is dangerous terrain that scatters 2d6 in a random turn, and any enemy unit the moving template touches or moves over must immediately take d6 strength tests, and for each that is failed, the unit loses a single wound. It's fine, but it's not... Yeah, it's a random moving vortex. Now, that said, it doesn't hit enemy... It doesn't hit allied units, which is nice, because elves typically don't have the best strength. But, yeah, it exists. It exists. Why A tier for Demon's Lord? The average of the votes is the B tier. It was a 3-way tie between A, B, and C. Yeah, I agree. It would have made more sense to go in the B tier. But let's open up voting for the Lore of Naggaroth. What are we thinking here? Oh, thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate that. I will, when I get a chance, make sure to update you on the Discord as well, because if you do become a member at Longbeard tier or above, you do get access to the VIP section in Discord. So if you wouldn't mind posting in Nee's role, then I will remember after the stream to make sure to assign your role correctly. But yes, thank you again. Appreciate that. How are we looking on the Lore of Naggaroth? Now you're talking my language. I can get behind C tier. I don't think it's F tier. I think you could argue that the Black Horror has enough play. Like, I don't like it, but I can see times that I would use it. But yes, I can see that. Okay. Coming into the last 20 seconds here for Lore of Naggaroth, which is, I think, it hasn't even held my interest for 90 seconds. So we'll be wrapping that one up quick sharp. And I believe moving on to, is it Lizardman next? This is a Lore of Magic that I think most people here will not have seen before. Oh, no, it's the Lore of Safri. I did forget. We do have a High Elf lore in here. Now, High Elves. Obviously, High Elves have some good reliability in the casting, which is they get to reroll 1 failed spell per turn, which is quite nice to have. And they also come with their own spells. So, there's 3 options. One of them is the Hand of Cain, which is cast an innate, single strength 4 hit, no armor save allowed. Very underwhelming. It does not compare well to Hammer Hand at all, which is 2d3 strength 4 hits at AP2, so that feels a lot better. Courage of a Narian, which is cast on a 10, remains in play, so your opponent gets a chance to dispel it before, it usually matters. You can give a target-friendly unit Unbreakable, which turns off other enchantments on the unit. I did not rate this very highly. However, I want to give a shout-out to Rosalie, who is Team Netherlands, who has been talking about this a chunk, in that it's got value because you can cast it on a dragon, put that dragon into the front of a unit with a unit champion, know that you're going to lose because of the challenge rules, and then after you lose the combat, give ground 2 inches, your opponent can't get out, and if they charge you, you then get to probably win combat because you won't be challenged out a second time. So, some good value there. Finally, there's Vol's Unmaking, which is a hex that you cast on an 11, 12-inch range spell, cast on characters, so you can cast it in range that you can draw line of sight to, even if they're in a unit or in combat, which is great. And if you get it off, you destroy a single magic item of your choice, which is pretty cool. But it casts an 11. This is one that really could have done with being dropped down in terms of the casting value there. I think would have been very good to have that one drop. And I've opened up voting for the Lore of Safari. What are we thinking? What are we thinking? I'm thinking I don't take these spells very often. Immediately sitting into B tier. First 2 games I played of Old World were ruined by Vol's Unmaking. I think Vol's was conditionally good in pre 1.5. I took it a lot when I was doing like High Elf Dragon, because then I could go into combat with another dragon and turn off their ward save, and that felt pretty solid. But now that it's cast 11, it just doesn't go off very much. Vol's Unmaking makes you sad because it was so good in 8th. Yeah. I can't remember. In fact, I don't think I played 8th. I played like 5th, 6th, maybe the start of 7th. But when I was a wee baby, so I don't remember much of it. I think it's really good against people who don't know what they're doing. It used to be really good against people who didn't know what they're doing. Now that it's cast 11, I don't think it's very good against anyone. It looks fun. I wouldn't take it, but it looks fun. Yeah. I think it leads to story moments if it goes off, which is cool. And that takes us to the end of Lore of Safari, which is solidly B tier, and I think that's just fine. Moving on, though, we've got Bretonnians. Bretonnians, who I really thought I was doing this alphabetically. Never mind. I guess maybe I did it alphabetically for the laws. Nope. Oh well. We got Bretonnians now. Bretonnians have the Lore of the Lady, and this is 3 spells, of which one of them I think is very good, and 2 of them I think are conditionally useful. So immediately we're at a pretty good spot, in my opinion, for Bretonnians spells there. We start off with the, let's go the 2 conditional ones first. Burning Gaze, which is a line magic missile, cast at a 10. It might have gone down to 9 actually, I can't remember. Anyway. 5d6 range, straight line, any one hit is a strength 4 hit with no armor save. And remember that line spells can go through everything. They can even hit stuff in combat because there's nothing saying they can't, which is dumb, but that is how that one is set up to work. 5d6 range averages out at what, like, is that 18 inches? Is that how maths works? 7 inches, 14 inches, 17.5. Yeah, 17.5 inches. It's fine. I think this is solid. It's not incredible, but it has some good use. And strength 4 hit with no armor saves can be really, really solid into some armies. The Lady's Wrath, cast on a 9, is a remains in play spell that is self. Your unit, your caster, mount, and unit they join gain +1 to strength and AP. So it's kind of like a down-tuned demonic vessel, but it's a signature spell, and you can't take dark demonology here, so gives you some extra oomph on, for example, if you go into Grail Knights, or if you go into Knights of the Realm or Knights Errant, getting them up to strength 6 AP3 is pretty okay. Finally, we've got the Lady's Gift, which is a remains in play enchantment cast on a 7 or a 10. If it's cast on a 7, you get a 6-up regen. If it's cast on a 10, it's a 5-up regen. Only a 12-inch range, but you can cast it into combat, so you can put it on a unit. They just fly away, you stay out of dispel range. Not a bad little spell there. Okay, let's put Lore of the Lady on there. Nima says, you missed Lore of Safari. Vols is impossible to cast. Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely what we'd come to the conclusion of. But the Courage of an Aryan, I think, is actually much better than I have been giving it credit for, to be honest. Lore of the Lady. What are our early adopters of Lore of the Lady? We're looking at beat 80 here. I think that's not unreasonable. No, not Hand of Cain. Courage of an Aryan, the one that makes you unbreakable. Lady's Gift is really good if it makes your opponents forget about Wind Blast. Yeah. For those of you not aware, Matthew played on stream this weekend and forgot that the Lancers were going to get Wind Blasted off the board because Elise obviously can take 2 signature spells with the Lore of the Lady, which means that the fact that there are so many spells in here that are at least playable, I think is very nice as well. Not that I take Lady Elise, but you know, it is a nice little fringe benefit there. You'll never take it because it should not be a high elf spell. I don't know why that would be. But moving on from one army that can do high magic, we're moving on to Lizardmen. And Lizardmen, we've got 2 spells here. We've got Apotheosis, which is a spell that is terrible because the things you can cast it on have very few wounds. So this casts on a 10 or a 12. It can only cast on friendly characters who are infantry or cavalry, but it can cast into combat. So max, you're looking at like 3 wounds. If it's cast on a 10 or more, they gain D3 lost wounds. If it's cast on a 12 or more, they gain D3 plus 1 lost wounds. Cool. Can't cast it on a Slann, which is the character with a large pool of wounds. Can't cast it on a Carnosaur. Those would be very good. It does give the friendly character fear and upgrade their fear to terror, but yeah, this is a big miss in my eyes. Then we've got Monsoon, which is actually conditionally not too bad. Magical Vortex, which is cast on an 8, 15-inch range, and it scatters D6 inches every turn. Enemy units that it hits become drenched, and you're -1 to shoot if you have, if you're drenched. And if you are a drenched war machine on you roll a D6 on a 1, the machine fails to shoot this turn. This is not consistent, but it can turn off cannons, which is nice to have. So if you've got nothing else to do with your signature spell, this is not a terrible one to go for. How are we feeling about the Lore of Lustria? So far, we have no opinions on the Lore of Lustria. I'm sure I saw an F tier pop up there. Let me just refresh. There we go. We have one person who cares about Lustria, and they hate it. This is their least favourite thing of all time. Which, you know what? Fair. That is absolutely fair. It literally is just one vote unless the website's not showing up. That's funny. I think... Yeah. I might have to agree with you, you know. This might be the only F tier lore that I've seen. Oh, it's definitely not updating correctly for some reason. At least 2 people have voted. Yeah, I put a vote in as well. I don't know why it's not updating here. Just the website being even more broke than it was previously. This is incredibly annoying that it's not showing up correctly. Well, we'll see if it updates later on. I wonder if there's a way to force an update on it, something like that. But for now, it's just going to have to sit there, and we'll see if it updates down the line. All right. We've got another faction that you don't see a lot of, but I think this lore is at least a little bit more appetizing. But not that much more appetizing, because we're talking Troll Guts. Lore of the Great Maw is ogres, so you can start off with Troll Guts, which is cast on an 8 or an 11. 15-inch range, cast it on an 8, the target friendly unit gains a 6 up regen, and on an 11 it gives a 5 up regen. Lasts until next start turn subphase. The downside to this spell is you can't cast it into combat, and ogres probably the only way that you see them played on the tabletop is they try and grind through. So not having the ability to cast it into combat really does suck. We've also got Toothcracker, which is a 12-inch range spell, cast on a 7 or a 10. If you cast it on a 7, they get +1 to toughness. If you cast it on a 10, the target gets +2 to toughness. Now, that is ludicrous. It only lasts until the end of turn, but you could theoretically have like a toughness 8 Thunder Tusk or Stone Horn, I think is the other one, charging into combat with a dragon. Now, does that make it good? Maybe not, but yeah. That said, Matt says, give us our guts back. Yeah, I did like the old casting lore, where all of the spells were cast on like a 3 or a 4 or something, so you could legitimately just put a single die to each spell, back with the old Winds of Magic. That was an interesting way of casting spells. Dumps my guts now. Ogres, I think, do feel one of the more underwhelming armies just across the board compared to what they used to do. I remember being terrified of lead belchers, and now don't even see them on the table. Even in the square-based Renegades pack, I don't think I've seen them played. I just don't see ogres very often, to be honest. I'm going to click the Lore of Lustria, see if it's updated. It might just be that the website's fucked. Technical terminology. Yeah, I think that it might just be that it's wrecked. Seen some good ogre players about, not like GT good, but spicy ideas at RTTs. Yeah, I mean, so that's where you see this sort of army do well, because not to rag on people who go to RTTs in any way, but the better players typically go to GTs. So if they're not going to RTTs, it gives more space for people to play around with things and be less punished for it. I think that's the best way of putting it, which is good. I think that is, nice to have a space for armies that would not do well otherwise, because I think ogres don't, like, people tell me that ogres do are way better than I say they are, and I'm like, well, I just don't ever see it happen ever. Orc Boy Phil says they're the army you most identify with. Orc Boy Phil identifies most with ogres. I'm very disappointed in you. Very disappointed. Moving on, though, we're back in the Orcs. And Orcs cheat because they have 4 Laws of Magic available to them that nobody else gets. They've got Lore of Gork, Lore of Mork, the Troll Magic Lore, and then they've also got War Magic that is only for them. Or maybe there's someone else. I don't think there's anyone else who can take it. But yeah, very greedy of Orcs. They've got a lot of specialist casting. We're starting off with the Lore of Gork, which is the lore that Orc casters can take. And there's an Assailment and there's a Magic Missile. The Assailment is a single enemy model the caster is engaged with, takes a single Strength 6 hit. Multiple wounds, D3, no armor or regen saves allowed. Cast on a 10. It may have dropped in the FAQ. It's funny, the ones that I know have dropped are the ones that are good, which maybe tweaks how good you might, how you might feel about them when you're voting. But Brainburster is an Assailment that exists. Gaze of Gork, Magic Missile, cast on a 9, 5d6 range. It's a line spell, Strength 5, AP3. Again, it's got some play. One of the nice things about line magic missiles is that they ignore any magic resist that a unit has, because you're not casting it on them, you're just drawing it over. So there are some advantages to line spells. So 2 spells there, an Assailment and a Magic Missile. What are we thinking? Matt says, to be fair, that's fewer laws per player than most faction. Because they have so many players. You could say fewer laws per caster as well, because they have so many choices for casters. This is one that I will say I don't necessarily see a lot of from Orc players. I kind of feel like there are some signature spells that Orc players take, and these are not the ones that I recognize a lot. I think it's a good backup. Gaze is better than a kick in the nuts. Yeah, I've taken it. The first couple of tournaments I went to, when I was just so bad at the game, I was trying to make a Orc Weird Knob on Wyvern work, because I was like, I can fly around, I can Arcane Urgency, I can Pillar of Fire, Fireball, and Gaze of Gork. So many spells. One of the times of all time. Firmly in B tier here. I think with Orc players being Orc players, any sweeping generalization of the faction will be proven wrong because they're Orc players. They will prove us wrong because it's the funniest course of action. That is absolutely fair. Next up, we have got the Lore of Mork. You might recognize this one. First of all, there's Mork's Curse. There's two hexes. The first one is Mork's Curse. Remains in play. The target enemy unit must reroll any armor save roll of a natural 6. Okay, sure. Then we've got Itchy Nuisance as well. It's a hex, cast on a 9, 15-inch range, so shorter. Until your next start of turn subphase, the target enemy unit suffers minus D3 modifier to its toughness and initiative. You're going to see this a lot. This is a spell that a lot of people will be using if you play against them. You know those fanatics with their strength 5? What if you were minus D3 toughness on your dragon, and suddenly they're wounding you on average on 3s? That is a little bit scary, given the volume of fanatics they can bring. But just a solid solid spell overall, I should say. I've put my vote in. The lines are open, calls are recorded, and cost 13 pence per second. I don't know if anyone outside of the UK had those sort of clarifying statements made every time there was some sort of phone in and make a call, or if it's just our broadcast laws. I assume other countries probably have that as well. Phone lines are open, etc., etc. It's the War. Amy says the Lore of Mork is the reason that War is so good. You can never need a lore familiar, so you can always swap one out. Are pence legal tender? Indeed. They're English money, not Scottish money. Excuse me, buddy. Yeah, this is storming ahead. We have one person who thinks that it's only an A tier spell, but then everyone else looks like they are voting in the S tier. Yes, but what phone lines were you calling? None, because I was a child and didn't really care. But, you know, it was pervasive through the sort of crap that was on the telly back when I used to watch TV back in day. It's amazing how TV's just died as a medium for certain generations. It's definitely not something that I've I don't know the last time I sat in front of a TV screen, you know? Oh, and that takes us to the end. Incredibly S tier for the Lore of Mork. I agree. Good chat all. Let's move on to the Lore of Skaven. Now, another legacy faction. So, was missed in the rebalancing, has some high casting value spells that were not adjusted. There are 3 spells here. There are 3 that I would take in different situations, which is quite nice. First of all, this Cloud of Corruption. Magical Vortex, cast on a 10. It's a 9-inch range spell, a small 3-inch blast template. Whilst in play, the template is dangerous terrain that blocks line of sight, and it also makes enemy units -1 to toughness within 3 inches. And it's only enemy units within range. This is very solid, just if you want to try and debuff people. It doesn't get picked a lot now. It was definitely a staple when I was playing the Gutter Star. Just being able to wound more frequently was quite nice. Warp Lightning is an 18-inch range magic missile. D3 plus 1 strength 5 hits at AP3 is a very odd stat line, but it's very swingy, which makes it very Skaven. And then finally, Skitterleap, an 18-inch range spell, cast on an 8, targets friendly characters, but infantry friendly characters, but you can cast it on characters that are in combat, pick them up, and put them anywhere within 24 inches of their original location, but not within 6 of enemy models. You can't then move it again, and it's a conveyance, so you don't get to charge with it or anything like that. But yeah, it lets you get out of combat. So, Lore of the Horned Rat, what are we thinking here? Steck says, TV is great, I've got a YouTube app of mine. That's fair. That's fair. No spell with the 13 cast value. Yeah, that would be even 10s and 11s I turn my nose up at a lot of the time. Savas says, please ask the bill payers permission before calling. Yeah, that was the line. That was the line. Infantry-friendly characters are most characters. Bring back Skaven mounts. Yes, I'd love to see... that would be an interesting way to maybe buff them up in some way, but I then guess you'd need some sort of cavalry unit, otherwise they'd just be shot off the board. Unless you could mount someone on like a Hellpit Abomination. Or just make the Dragdalon rule not terrible. Give it Swift Stride. This is evening out a little bit. I like the spells here. I think they're just a little bit hard to cast. But the actual quantity of the spells themselves is not bad, in my opinion. I think they are pretty okay. They're a giant rat version of a dragon, a rat ogre mount, and a pelican. Fair. I'll have to go and look at those rules at some point, because I don't know that I've ever seen them before. I'm assuming that was 8th edition when a lot of the end time stuff came in. Yeah, I think I last had Skaven, or I had Skaven in 7th edition, right? Island of Blood was the 7th edition starter box, also the 8th edition starter box. Yeah. 7th and 8th. I had it in 7th, and I didn't play very much at 7th, so. Alright, let's move on to the, it's the Lore of Nikara. I was going to talk about the Lore of Undeath, but, I mean, they do very similar things, I will say. Tomb Kings and Vampire Count signature spells are a little different, but a lot the same. So, Tomb Kings, the Lore of Nikara. We've got the one that everyone knows, which is the Incantation of the Desert Wind, cast on a 6 or a 10. If it's cast on a 6, a single friendly unit within range gains reserve move. If you cast it on a 10, everyone in your command range gains reserve move. This is an undead staple. You think undead are slow. You are wrong. Undead are 28 days later fast, unfortunately. They are speedy. We've got Incantation of Desiccation, which is a 10 cast on a 10, 15-inch range hex, -1 to strength and toughness. Does turn off other hexes, but that's okay. And then we've got the Incantation of the Cursed Blades, which is all friendly undead within range, your command range, reroll any hit rolls of a natural 1. See this with Ushabti a lot. I'm just going to open the floor here. There's not a lot to talk about. I feel like we all have seen how effective this can be. I'm not even caring that I'm biasing the vote here. I'm just going to stick it straight in S tier. Having your entire army reserve move and also all of your shooting units that hit on 4s reroll 1s. Very good. Very good. It's going well, Strifey. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. There are some interesting takes. And honestly, I'm not really even going to blame the people voting. I think anything that looks a little bit weird here, I'm going to blame the voting website, Tiermaker. Like Lore of Demons, I think probably should have been further down. There were 3 people who voted for A, B, and C there. While we're waiting for this one to go through, let's have a quick look at the average vote. Oh yes, that does even out in the middle even more. Even more. Yeah, Lore of Nikara immediately going pretty close to the top. It is flying up there for sure. Alrighty then. Can't be long left on this one. 5 seconds left. Solidly placed in S tier. What have we got next? Well, we've had 1 undead. But what about second undead? Let's talk about the Lore of Undeath. Now, this is for Vampire Counts, which are an even better army than Tomb Kings. And we've got Hellish Vigor. I always get these two mixed up. Hellish Vigor is the same as the Incantation of the Desert Winds. It's your reserve move. Cast it on 1 unit, or if you get it on a 10, you get it on everyone in range. Very, very solid there. Van Hell's Dance Macabre, an enchantment spell, cast on an 8 or a 12. If it goes off on the minimum value, you get plus D3 modifier to 1 stat. If you cast it on a 12, you get that on 2, and the stats are movement, weapon skill, initiative. With this and the Helm of Commandment, you can get, on average, your weapon skill to 6. If you roll well, you can get it to, 8, which is ludicrous. Realistically, nothing's going to hit you on 2s. Most things are going to hit you on 4s. And if you're stacking debuffs, you might have lots of things hitting you on, if they failed the fear test, if you're glittering robes as well, they can be hitting you on 6s pretty consistently. Finally, there's Raise Dead, which is 2d3 risen zombies on the battlefield in skirmish. And just a reminder, you can only res them to the maximum unit size. You can res them up to 6. And you're casting it after the res step, so they have to hang around if you want to res them. But that is, something that you can do there if you want to. Really, it's the other 2 spells that steal the show. I'm going to click the start voting button, and again, I'm just going to bias the vote immediately by putting it right up there with the Lore of Nikara. Strifey says, War Magic and S tier. Hell yeah, love to see that. Orcs and Goblin players are very, very excited about everything to do with Orcs and Goblins, I find. Which, it sounds like I'm slagging them off. That's not my intent. It's the opposite. Orcs and Goblins players have more fun playing Warhammer than all of the rest of the Warhammer players combined, in my experience. Which I'm envious of. I am envious of. Amy, I was trying to coach it in in a framing that wasn't negative. I was trying to be not rude. May not have managed that, though. Alright, looking very similar there to the Lorna-Kara. The difference is you can have vampires instead of having skeletons, which is way cooler. Oh, you answered before the delay. That's fair. That's fair. Hoop Jones says, I still think Raise Undead has a lot of potential, but unfortunately the other spells are too important, and with Run Again, it's uncastable now. Going off on a 10. Yeah, I'm not bothered about trying to cast that on a 10 when I could just be Van Helsing and Van Helsing and Hellish Vigoring. It's pretty top heavy here. Spells are surprisingly one of the best things that you can do with your army a lot of the time. Is this... Have I paused it? No. I think it's just messing about. There we go. Alright. We're into the Law of Chaos now. So, Law of Chaos. We've had pink... we've had pink flames. But what about blue flames? This is a law that is significantly more exciting, in my opinion, than its demonic counterpart, and that's because it's got an incredible signature spell. I know I said that Demonology has maybe the best magic missile for like a core signature spell, but this is the best signature spell, or just probably the best magic missile in the game, outside of Viletide. But I think I would take... I don't know, actually. Viletide's probably better, but this is like... a very close second place. It's an incredible spell. Blue Fire is obviously what I'm talking about. Magic Missile, 18-inch range, cast on a 9, d6 plus 3, strength 4 hits at AP2 with Flaming. So consistent. This will just eat knights for breakfast, which are very points dense usually. The way this works is you take the spell that correlates with your law, so Tzeentch gets a Magic Missile, Undivided gets a Hex, which is -1 to movement, and -1 to movement if you cast it on a 7, -2 to movement if you cast it on a 9. I've never seen anyone use this. We've got Acquiescence, Marcus Slaanesh, which is a cast on a 6, which is interesting. It's the only spell in the game that casts on a 6, as far as I can remember. Gives an enemy unit strikes last, but it is cast on a 12. That's fine, I think. I'm not taking it, but it is fine. There are easier ways to give out strike last in this book. Finally, there's Fleshy Abundance for Nurgle. Remains in play, casts a 7, self, and it gives you +1 to your toughness. This is too easy to dispel, but being toughness 5 is very, very good. So I don't hate it as... You take it and that you hope that your opponent doesn't roll, gets an 8 to dispel it, which can happen some of the times. And also you get the value of it when you charge in as well. Let's press that button. What are we thinking for this spell law? With the classic Chaos Sorcerer on your screens right now as well. Blue Fire is the dummy thing. Just the consistency. The consistency of having a plus D3 is very good. Oh, but +3, sorry, D6 plus 3. I'd rather have D6 plus 3 than having 2D6. Yes, I know the average on a die is 3.5, so you're slightly below average. But just having the consistency of knowing what you're getting is very, very good. Strifey says, quite surprised to see Illusion so high after 1.5. Glittering Robes. Glittering Robes cast on a 7. It's very solid. Like, I think the focus on what you do with Illusion has shifted a little bit, and it's less the two hex, like the two control pieces, and more towards Glittering Robes, but those control pieces are still very, very strong. AP2 is just crazy good now, especially in shooting, yeah. Because that's, if you think about a unit in terms of what it has with its parry save, it's effectively AP3, which is how people are typically, or how I'm typically anyway, evaluating the save of a unit. Where I'm like, oh, it's got a 4-up save if it's got light armor and shield. So it's effectively AP3 if you think about it in that term. Now, That's maybe not how everyone else is evaluating it, but that is how I'm thinking about it. Late to the party, you saw a tournament-winning VC list with Dark Magic, and you're wondering if it's typo. No, Dark Magic's very good, and you run it with Hex Wraiths. Because Hex Wraiths, obviously being ethereal with great weapons, is an issue that a lot of armies are going to struggle to deal with, but they're pretty anemic. They have poor weapon skill. They have 1 attack. Give them Battle Lust for Frenzy and Hatred. Ooh. And also Dark Magic has another, leadership debuff in there. So you can just do fun things. Or is that Demonology? That's Demonology. It's got Word of Pain, which is just very good to have as well. All right. The Law of Athel Loren. This is Wood Elves. Now, previously, prior to 1.5, I'd have said, actually, this is pretty snazzy. There's some stuff in here that I like. Let's start with what I don't like, which is probably the worst magic missile in the game. It's, directly comparable to the Dark Magic missile that I think is terrible. Flock of Doom, cast on 9, 18-inch range, small blast template that is strength 3, AP 1. It's more valuable now than it was before. I still don't think it's good. Forest Walker, cast, I think it went down to a 9. 24-inch range, you cast it on a character within a woodland terrain feature, as long as they're not fleeing. You pick it up, put it down, so it's outside of 6 inches of enemy models, but it can only go from wood to wood, so you're a little bit limited there, even though you do bring your own wood, or cast more woods. Finally, we've got Tree Singing, which is cast on a 7 or a 9. It's a 15-inch range spell, remains in play, and depending on if you get a 7, you get a 3-inch blast template, and if you get a 5, you get a 5-inch blast template. Large or small blast template wood, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. And enemy units treat the wood as dangerous terrain, which is pretty neat. This is worse than it was, in that now you can dispel with your wizard if you're in range of the vortex. So often you would use this and then reserve move out of range of dispel to try and keep it in place, and they only need to get an 8, even with a fate to dispel. It's still not bad, and people take it, so I'm going to hit play. And it does lean into the game plan of Wood Elves not being hit. The best defense is a good not being hit. Strifer says it's no Law of the Wilds. Or Law of Beasts. There are 2 factions that play around in the trees, and one of them feels a lot scarier in terms of the spells that they can bring, for sure. That said, I do think there is some value to the Law of Athel Loren, and it mostly comes in Tree Singing. Basically, if I ever see a Wood Elf player at the table, I'm assuming they're going to be taking Tree Singing. That is probably a pretty safe assumption to be making most of the time. So you could argue that that makes it S tier. I wouldn't put it in S tier. I would not put it in S tier. How are we feeling here? Tied between B, C, and F. Well, B and C and then F. Just bring up the rear there. That is not a flattering position to be in for Law of Athel Loren. Definitely not a flattering position. 1A tier. 1A tier. I don't know if I love that. I do like the secondary law that you can take if you're a Wood Elf player, which we'll be getting to sooner rather than later. But these spells, fine. All right, that leaves us with Wood Elves going into the B tier. Tied between B and C, and they did end up in B. That takes us to the end of the faction spells that were in the main books, and it takes us on to the Arcane Journal laws now. And we're starting off with, in my opinion, a banger. Troll Magic. You've got a signature spell that gives you, it's a self-range enchantment, cast on an 8, remains in play, and it lets you reroll stupidity tests. However, keep in mind, stupidity tests happen before this, so if you do cast it, you get to reroll anyone who has failed a stupidity test in range, which is pretty neat. Now, stupidity has been nerfed, so that if you are stupid, you can't cast spells anymore, so you can't just bail yourself out in the way that you used to be able to, but it's still pretty important if you're playing Troll Horde. The rest of the lore has some good stuff in there as well. There's a magic missile, which is over the center of a unit and then scatters with a template. Not taking that. Troll Brains to give an enemy unit stupidity and -1 leadership. I'm not excited about it. However, Ravenous Recourse. All friendly units within 12 inches of the caster that have stupidity gain +2 to the movement characteristic. Boom. We're going to be absolutely yeeting those trolls. They've got a 6-inch range to start off with, or 5 on the troll hag. So just being able to march 16 inches, or be in marching column and move 24 inches with the trolls is pretty nice there. We've got rapid regeneration, 12-inch range enchantment, gives a target friendly unit flammable and regen 5+. So given that you're taking this likely in Troll Horde, you get to reroll that regen as long as they're not magical attacks. Pretty solid. Then we've got an Assailment in Torrent of Filth, which is fine. We've got Fetid Whirlpool, which is a random moving template, which is fine. Oh, thank you again, Amy. That's very kind of you. I've just realised it's strategically placed during Troll Horde. Amy has moved not away from the Ragnarok Spider, but has moved to try and make Troll Horde work. I'm assuming it's because I said it's in honor of the trolls. Yeah, is it because I'm saying nice things about troll magic? I think troll magic might be maybe the best thing about Troll Horde. But yeah, if you have been gifted a close audition membership, do please make sure to say thank you to Amy, but also post in the Need Role channel on Discord, and I will apply that role to you, and you'll be able to see the VIP section for a month as well. It is, yeah, it's fantastic. So Fetid Whirlpool, which is one of those small blast templates, which is a vortex that only hits enemy units. I'm starting to see more of these. I haven't been looking at vortex spells super closely, because outside of Pillar of Fire, they weren't really worth looking at prior to 1.5. Now that doesn't exist, maybe I should reconsider how I feel about vortex spells, because not hitting allies and enemy units that it hits doing D3+3 strength 4 hits at AP2. That's not bad. That is something. What else is there? I think that's covered all of the spells there. Yeah, all of the spells. Let's hit the button and give me your thoughts on Troll. Troll Horde, Troll Magic, Troll, and try not to fail your stupidity test when you press the buttons. Again, Wizard's Hat for the extra confusion and randomness. Yeah, you could, if you wanted to, take Wizarding Hat on this and Big Smarts, which is funny, because you would then be able to reroll your stupidity, but you'd only be getting, the only spell you'd be getting would be Big Smart. I have considered taking this with Cold One Knights, who have stupid, and just using that as a backup plan to get them out of, the problem they're in. Remember, 1/3 of the time they don't move, half the time not far. You do. Oh, this is the vortex spells. You can use them for movement control. Yeah. That is true. When they only move D6, you do generally know where they go. That is true. How are we looking here? Solidly into the A tier. I think that feels pretty good. Troll Magic and Troll Horde is superb. I don't think the Hag Juice is worth taking outside that. Yeah, I guess unless you were taking Troll Hags, I think I'd be pretty tempted to just take it there anyway. Ogdrus, though, in Grand Army is a nice mix for the regen, if nothing else. Yeah, that's true. Be able to, because Ogdrus has Lore Familiar and can pick from 2 laws, being able to take Elementalism's ward save and the regen as well, you can just supercharge 1 unit. Maybe I should do that. Maybe that's something I should play around with. All right. We are into Beastmen. Beastmen. And we've got the Law of Primal Magic. This is an interesting one. So we start off with the signature spell, which is Primordial Gloom, which is a remains in play. You treat open ground within 6 inches of this template as difficult terrain, so it's got the same value that we get from the high magic spell that we were talking about previously. So this is really nice if you're worried about fanatics. It's also casting a 9, which I do like because it's quite easy to get casting bonuses if you are in Beastmen. So you're able to get that off and it's harder to dispel, makes it difficult for fanatics to play. We've got Call of the Wild, which gives a friendly infantry or cavalry unit reserve move. This is really solid, especially if you're doing, Steed of Shadows or the Flying Carpet. So giving them reserve move to go out and Valtide, very nice. In the Gloaming Wildwood, this is a hex that makes that unit fear you, or if they'd fear you anyway, terror. Given how cheap Razorgore are that cause fear, if you cast this on a unit, you can make a unit take a lot of terror tests, which is fun. I haven't got much value out of it, but it theoretically does work. Flock of Doom, which, like the Wood Elf Flock of Doom, is not very good. It's an assailment that scatters. Only hits enemy units, but I still don't like it. Fury of the Beast. This gives the unit fight an extra rank, which means that if you're doing something like the Primal Warherd, if you're charged, obviously it's only until the end of turn, so it's a bit weird. So if you're in a subsequent round of combat, say that you're in a stalemate combat, you're getting 2 ranks fighting. So you've got the front 2 ranks in the Primal Warherd are going to be Gore. Then the third rank will have spears, so they get to fight, and then you get the fight an extra rank special rule, and you can fight with 4 ranks, I guess, with Fury of the Beast. I assume that's how it works. I've never actually looked. I've never looked to see if that stacks with spears. I just assume it does, and I'm not going to check because I don't think it's worth doing. Really, what this is good in is the Brick of Gore that charge in, and instead of only fighting with 1 rank, now you get to fight with a 2nd rank, and you probably want to combo it with a Demonic Vessel Steed of Shadows caster as well. Strangle Root is a magic missile, 4d6 in line, but each model hit takes d3 strength 3 hits at AP2. This synergizes very well with the Hagtree Fetish. I really like this if I'm going for a Hagtree Fetish caster. And finally, we've got Neath the Shaden Woadspan, which is, again, one of the only things that can really, really hurt the ability of Ushabti to play into you. It's a remains in play template with a high casting value, which means that you're going to be, you know, if you get it off, your opponent's going to struggle to get rid of it. It blocks line of sight, it's dangerous terrain, and within 6 inches of the template, enemy units are -2 to your ballistic skill to a minimum of 1. And if an enemy unit ends its movement within 3 of it, they make a panic test. And if they fail the panic test, they flee away from the nearest enemy unit, which is not fleeing. So, quite an exciting lore. I think they've really knocked it out of the bag when they've written full lores in arcane journals. I've been pretty impressed by them. I think what they've done spell lore-wise is just really solid. I'd like to see more spell lores coming out. Just, I think they really spice up the armies that can take them. That is my opinion anyway. I have pressed the button, by the way, if you hadn't noticed. So feel free to vote on how good you think the lore of Primal Magic is. And obviously keep in mind, Beastmen get very easy access to at least +1 to cast through the Herdstone, even if they're not Wild Herd, which is where this lore is default found. We did it, guys. Troll Magic, not an F tier. Nice. Your trolls are indeed just ravenous. Yeah, maybe Orcboy Phil should identify more with Troll Horde than Ogre Kingdoms, because then at least it's still orcs. That would make sense. That would make sense to me. Coming into the dregs here, and looking like an A tier for the lore of Primal Magic, which I agree. I think it's good, but I don't think it's truly great. A lot of A tiers here for Magic, which feels pretty correct to me. Then we've got the Wood Elves. Hoop Jones can't vote on stuff I haven't played against. Oddly enough, there's a lot of stuff I haven't played against. You know what? That's fair. That is fair. So, Wood Elves, and this is one of, I think, the most interesting things about Wood Elves, is the new Lore of Magic that they got, Lore of the Wilds. The signature spell is fine, so it's Swirling Mist. Any enemy models that direct a shooting attack at the caster or any unit they've joined, reroll any rolls to hit of a natural 6. So this is like the Mark of Nurgle, but for shooting. It's fine. I'd like to combo it with Glittering Robes, but then we've got 2 casters in 1 unit. Maybe that's something we look at, especially if you're leaning on Skirmish as well. But yeah, I think it's an interesting buff, even if it's not one that I necessarily value super highly. This is an interesting lore. So we've got a Magic Missile, which is cast on a 10, and it's D3+1 Strength 6 hits at AP2 multiple wounds 2. So this can do a lot of damage to high value targets. Ariel's Blessing until your next start of turn sub phase, get a regen 5 up. This is good. It's a little bit annoying because Forest Spirits already have a regen baked in, so I almost would have preferred this to be a ward save. But you can already take laws that give you ward saves, so doing something different I think is interesting. Spiteful Torrents is a remains in play blast template. Enemy units take 3d6 strength 2 hits at AP1. Again, more and more of these are popping up, and I think I am actually going to have to reconsider how I feel about them and maybe see if I can get some more value out of them. Durthu's Wrath, which is the most exciting thing, especially with 1.5. It's an assailment. Each model in the fighting rank of a unit that the caster is engaged with must immediately make an initiative test. Each model that fails this test suffers D3 strength 4 hits, no armor saves allowed. Oh, now, these wounds don't spill over, so you do have to slow roll a little bit, but given that the fighting rank has doubled for infantry that didn't charge, if you put this on a caster on a mount and you charge in and you cast this assailment spell, they could theoretically take a lot of damage, especially if you're talking about something like an undead unit that has poor initiative. So you could theoretically kill large amounts of Graveguard there. Hidden Pathways is give a friendly unit within 12 reserve move, and it can quick turn even if it not normally be able to do so. So basically gives you reserve move and fast cav, you could say. That's fine. It's fine. If you didn't have core reserve move cavalry already, this would be incredible, but you do have core reserve move cavalry. So I'm not 100% sure what I want to put this on more than anything else. I guess dragons, maybe. Getting more mobility is fine, or doing something with infantry. I don't know. There's probably something there, but I haven't thought about too much. And then Sapping Blight, which is a hex, only 12-inch range, but it can be cast into combat. D3 modifier to the strength of the enemy unit, but it turns off other hexes on them. Opening up the voting there. What are we thinking? Hosts of Taliesin don't have reserve move cavalry corps. That's true. I don't know that Hosts of Taliesin exist. Yep. Are people taking power scrolls pretty regularly now? Every time I don't, I feel like regretty spaghetti. Now when I blow it on an important turn. Yes, yeah. Power scrolls are very good. Strifey loves the Wood Elf lore. Would love to play around with it more. I wish you could take a High Elf, a Wood Elf dragon. Or a Wood Elf caster on a dragon, I'm trying to say. That would be very fun. And just having, being able to roll into such an incredible assailment. I think I would love to take the Lore of the Wilds on a level 3 wizard and just be like, all right, what am I getting? Do I get a magic missile? Do I get a regen? Do I get a solid vortex? Do I get to ruin their fighting rank? Do I get to reserve move and then combo that with the spell so I actually get some mobility, or even hexing their strength? Hexing the strength of an enemy unit is very valuable if they're in combat with a dragon. Most elves are T3, and they don't care that the strength has gone from 6 to 4. Or I guess they care a little bit, but they're still going to fall over because they're naked elves. But yeah, if you're fighting a dragon, getting that strength down from strength 7 down to strength 5, for example, that is very, very nice. Okay, solidly A tier. Yeah, I think this is a good lore that is hindered by the army. So I think A tier feels pretty reasonable. Now, we're coming into the last two. We've got the Lore of Yang and the Lore of Ying. These are the two laws that you can take depending on which, what you want to go with. Something to remember is the way the elemental winds blow is that if you have wizards with the Lore of Yang, when you roll a 1, 2, 3 at the start of the turn, then your wizards with the Lore of Yang increase their dispel range and the range of their enchantment spells by 3 inches. So that's the buff that they get. Whereas the Lore of Yin, which is the one we'll come to, give extra range on hexes or magic missiles. Just worth noting in terms of which one you want to pick up. Lore of Yang comes with a magic missile. Cast it on a 7, d6 plus 1 strength 4 hits with no AP. Cast it on 11, 2d6 plus 2 strength 4 hits at AP1. This is a side grade, I would say, to Fireball, but the fact that it is a signature spell is very nice, and I'm happy to pick this up on a lot of the casters I would take, I think. So it's nice to have there as an option. Great Bastion. It's a remains in play. It gives the friendly unit a 6 ward save, and every model within the front rank of an enemy unit that ends the charge move in base contact with the target unit must make a dangerous terrain test. And they count as wounds for combat res as well. You can cast it into units in combat, but it doesn't matter unless they charge you. So If you're in like a stalemate with the one unit, it doesn't matter, but if other things are going to charge in, it can help. Then we've got Might of Heaven and Earth. It's an enchantment cast on a 9 or a 12. If you cast it on a 9, it's just for you and your unit. It gives you +1 to your weapon skill, strength, and weapon skill and strength. Pretty solid, gives you flaming attacks as well. If you cast it on a 12 or more, which is quite unlikely to do now, you give it in your caster's command range, weapon skill, and strength. So this is quite nice if you want to go for some sort of BT character more than anything else. Let's open up the voting for the Law of Yang, one of the 2 laws that Cathay gets, because why not give them just double? I know it makes sense, I'm just being a little bit salty. In Total War they have, I believe, 2 different laws of magic there. Yin is the star, but all of the casting values are very high to do much. I like Yang more. I definitely like Yang more. But it just gives you like direct power in a way that Law of Yin gives you more options. Early votes putting it in A tier for Law of Yang. I think that feels pretty fair there. I don't disagree with that one too heavily. Yeah, that feels pretty okay. Let's just see if I can click. No, I can't click that. Maybe I have to pause the vote to see what the Law of Lustry was doing. The random move D6 spell is glorious. Yeah, if you can cast Spirits of Wind and Shadow on an enemy unit, it can really ruin their ability to do anything. It's like you say though, very high casting value. Coming to the end of the Law of Yang, looks like it's going to cross the line in A tier. Not a huge number of votes on these. Funnily enough, people maybe a little fatigued by Cathay. And moving on to the last one, we've got the Law of Yin. We've got Spirits of Wind and Shadow, as mentioned. It's a hex, 15-inch range, so stuff that would really be ruined by it, like cavalry and dragons, can outrange it, but it gives you, if you cast it on an enemy unit on a 10, gives them random move D6 for a turn, which is pretty punishing. Accursed Mirror is a hex, which makes hit rolls of a natural 1 by the enemy unit, either during the shooting or combat phase, result in a strength 3 hit at AP 1 against that unit. Pretty funny. That is pretty funny. I don't think they count for combat res, now that I look at this, because it doesn't specifically say they do, but just a little bit of damage there is quite nice. And then Ancestral Warriors, which is like the Magic Missile, but it's the melee version. It's an assailant, cast on a 7 or an 11. On a 7, a single enemy unit takes 2d3 strength, 2 hits at AP 0, Armor Bane 1. Oh, sorry, Armor Bane 2. And if it's cast on 11, it's 2d6 strength, 4 hits at AP 1, Armor Bane 2. So the top level of that is a very punishing assailant, but it is very hard to get off there. Yin Caster also gives an extended range on all hexes. I feel like that's a huge upgrade for illusion casters, says Tommy. That is true. Yeah. That's a very good point. You probably want to take this if you're going in illusion, so you can increase the range of Miasmic Mirage. Very good point. I have pressed go there. Think about the D6 move spell as a reroll on Miasmic Mirage. Yeah, just double chance. Ancestral Warriors in Total War is a summon, which would be way cooler. Yeah, I don't know how they would do a summon. Well, I guess the vampire counts have summons. It almost feels like we're verging into AOS territory if we talk about summons in terms of like armies that aren't undead and just been like, I summon some models, whereas they can summon spells or terrain or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Currently sat in B tier. People not a huge fan of the Law of Yin. Not a huge fan. Well, say that and it immediately moves up. That's funny. All right, coming to the end there on the Law of Yin. Maybe a couple of votes left to come in, but I think that basically wraps us up on this one in terms of we're pretty set in terms of what people are going to be going with. So I think the stuff in the top tier is not super surprising. I don't agree that WoW is an S tier lore. I understand why people have put it there, but for me, it feels more like an A tier lore. Illusion, both of the undead lores, Lore of Mork, Necromancy, Lore of Beast, these all make sense to be an S tier. I wouldn't move those. While going down to A tier, I think feels right. Battle, Demonology, Elementalism, all in A tier is good. Troll in A tier is good. Lore of Chaos, yeah. Lore of Demons, I think I'd move down. I don't necessarily have a super strong opinion on the Lore of Yang and Yin. I'm fine with them being in between A or B. Lore of the Lady, I think I voted in B. Let me just double check. Lore of the Lady. I didn't even press the button. I guess I must have forgotten. Yeah, I think Lore of the Lady for me moves down 1, and maybe Lore of Demons moves down 1, then the Lore of Yang and Yin can sort of sit around there, or maybe down towards B, potentially. Dark Magic, Safri High, Gork, Shut, Athel Loren, and Lore of the Horned Rat. I think all of those in B tier feels fine. And then Lore of Naggaroth, Lore of the Great Moor, Lore of Lustria. Lore of Lustria, yeah, maybe that is genuinely an F tier spell, actually, lore, actually. Because it's so unlikely for anything to actually happen. Apotheosis just doesn't function. And the Monsoon technically functions, but doesn't actually do anything. Don't you dare touch my trolls. I was stream of consciousness talking, but I don't think I said anything negative about them. I think I said that they're okay where they are. And if I did say differently, I apologize for my actions. There's someone in Total War is Ghost Switch disappear after a while. Yeah, I think that's reasonably well represented by like an assailment spell then, or a magic missile. I'm not sure what the range of it is in Total War. That is something that I should get round to playing. Would there? I've dabbled with playing some games on stream, but they weren't necessarily Warhammer games. Would there be interest in me trying out Total War on stream? I think I'd be terrible at it. I've played like 20 minutes and just went, I don't immediately understand this, and gave up. Amy would watch. Now that I've upgraded my PC, I could probably actually run it with decent graphics. So I'm more open to trying it. So maybe that is something that I should look at getting into. Maybe do like a monthly stream for that instead of making it a super regular thing. Total War's a good stream. You watch a lot of Age of Empires 2 and it seems similar. I actually surprisingly enjoy that sort of game stream, even though I don't play them. Watching, I really like StarCraft. I almost never watch it, but I'm a huge fan of high-level StarCraft gameplay when it comes around in front of me. Only play Total Warhammer 3. The others are just for races nowadays. Thank you for letting me know. I think I own 2, but I mean I could. This is completely off topic. The Counter-Strike skin market crashed, and by that I mean all of the really expensive stuff got less expensive. Really interesting to look into if you're at all interested in like game economics. They lost 2 billion. The entire like Steam Counter-Strike inventory ecosystem lost $2 billion worth of value, which is wild. Like it's insane that is a thing that is even possible. But the value of some skins went up, and the mechanics of it was basically there is a way to increase the value of your items. So if you have crap items, you can take 10 of each value and combine them through a trade-up contract into the next tier. And there's like 6 tiers, but they added a new way of trading up. So previously, you couldn't trade up into the top level items, which are knives and gloves. So now the one step below them, the red items, which is like your fancy guns, can now be traded up into knives. And the context here is that when I saw that, I was like, oh, cool, I don't have anything super expensive. Let's have a look. Oh, this skin that I bought for £2 has gone up to £45. So I sold it, and I got about 40 odd quid on my Steam account. That was the purpose of that story time. So my point there is I would not be opposed to buying Total Warhammer 3. Although I am also thinking about picking up Baldur's Gate. But that one I'm not in a rush to play. It's something that's been on my list for a while. I just haven't got around to it. It was all kids gambling. Still is. Kid gambling still going on. Something probably going to be done about that. And I think this is part of, Valve trying to clamp down and move the ecosystem onto their own platform instead of having trading done outside of their platform more than anything else. Yeah. Cool. Total Warhammer 3 is in this month's Humble Choice. Oh, amazing. So you normally pay. It's been a while since I've picked up a Humble Bundle, but I think if I'm right, you normally pay like 15 or so quid for the thing. Humble Choice 11.49. Total Warhammer 3. Amazing. And obviously, it has been a long time since I've looked, but I'm pretty sure it is a charity purchase, I believe. So obviously, if I'm buying a game and some of that is going to charity, hell yeah. Hell yeah. So yeah, maybe that's one that I pick up and do like a monthly stream. Any preference for those of you here on what day it would be best to watch someone playing? I don't know that I necessarily want to replace a Friday stream. I feel like Fix My List, I was previously doing sort of like every other week, and I was looking for other streams to fill, but I feel like Fix My List is such a popular thing there's lots of people who want their list to be looked at, so I don't know that I want to replace any of those Friday night streams, and I sometimes have to miss them in terms of traveling to tournaments anyway. And I don't really want to fit it into a Tuesday night stream. I feel like the podcast tier list system I've got going works well. Not Thursdays, says Amy. Well, I wouldn't want to do Thursdays anyway. Actually, that's a good point. Obviously, I upload videos on Thursdays. I've been thinking about changing my upload schedule around a little bit, but I don't know how to do it. The problem is I've got Monday night fixed in. When I'm not coaching, I go out and do Magic, and it's the one thing that I do in a week that isn't Warhammer, so I don't want to give that one up. So I don't want to make Monday night a regular stream or upload. I could upload a video on Mondays, actually. I hadn't considered that. But I don't want to go like content, and then have 3 days where nothing happens. And I also can't commit to regularly putting stuff up on a weekend, because if I'm traveling to events or I'm going to events, I often find that I run out of time later in the week. So I need to have a think about how I want to put it in. Wednesdays are your local Warhammer day, but it's every other week. And if I miss it, I miss it. I'll watch replays. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I need to think about my upload schedule. Maybe it is Monday, but yeah, I don't know. I don't love the idea of uploading on Monday as the main video day. I do like Thursdays, but it just doesn't quite fit. And Tuesdays are probably not something that I could adjust in terms of. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I move the upload to Monday. Leave the podcast / tier list to Tuesday, because that's a fixed date that works well with Lewis, so I don't want to mess him around. Move Fix My List to Thursday. Sorry, Amy. Because I've been thinking that Friday night is not a great night to stream in general, and then I could then flex in the occasional Friday night stream if I wanted to. It's not a problem at the moment. I'm just very aware that, and this is a while out, when I want to get back into the dating game, which I do not have interest in doing at the moment. But giving up every Friday and then being away for weekends as well it's probably a little bit of a hard sell. So just making my evenings a little bit less hostile to doing things with other people would be good to move towards over the next year. This is not necessarily something that I'm planning on doing immediately, but just something that I'm thinking about. He just doesn't want to fix troll lists anymore. Well, Pete, you're always welcome to submit lists and watch back. A lot of people aren't able to make the stream. What's the word on more event coverage? I'm planning to do, so there's, I believe, 6 Saffron Slams coming up next year. My plan is to aim to do coverage for all of them. I need to find a better way of transporting my PC. Fortunately, because I got a lift from Ginger Steve, thank you again, Steve, appreciate you. Because I got a lift from Steve, it was quite easy to get to the event in terms of we just put my PC and stuff in the back. But I had to lug a lot of stuff there, and that was with me sending, like, directly Amazoning or eBaying stuff to Lewis's house. So I don't know what the plan is. I have recently passed my driving test, but actually Getting a car wouldn't be a problem, but the cost of running the car, I think, is something I'd find prohibitive at the moment. But I probably do need to look towards driving as the method of transport, because if I can drive, then putting my PC in the back of the car and driving down to Saffron Walden every 2 months is not difficult. But getting public transport with a 20 kilo PC that is quite large is difficult, because then I also have to bring like screen and stuff as well. So I need to think through logistics. But I am planning on doing every 2 months for the Saffron Slams. I'd like to, for at the very least for 2026, see what that turns into, whether I can continue to make that work. And I'm soft committing to doing the whole year. I'm not necessarily going to do tournament coverage the way that I did it previously. What I'm thinking is I'd like to do normal tournament coverage for some of the events. I'd also love to take a more stripped back setup. So the one in February, the beginning of February, what I'm thinking is I'll only take one screen and a couple of bits and pieces, and I will play 5 games myself in the tournament, and I will be mic'd up, and my opponent will be mic'd up, and I'll have a camera pointed towards me, and we'll have a top-down camera as well. And instead of casting the games, it'll be a 5-game, watch me play 5 tournament games, and also be able to hear me and my opponent. And then, I can try and give some commentary, but it'll be more having a good game against my opponent that people can watch and have 5 of those of the event. I think that's fun. If it flops, I guess I won't do it again, but it is something I'm keen to try. Yeah, that's the thoughts on event coverage. Matt says a van with the Close Order logo. So I have a friend who I haven't talked to since I was made redundant, because it was a friend at my last job. But he was working on converting a PC for. He was a big football fan, or is a big football fan. He was working on converting his van so he could sleep in it when he goes to football games. So he can drive down, stay in it overnight at a campsite or something, and be happy as Larry, drive back the next day. And I was thinking about doing something similar for Warhammer tournaments, but I think, yeah, it's the cost in that is prohibitive. Just in terms of like, I always don't want to talk about money on stream, because when you're in this position where you are relying on the charity of others as a chunk of your income, it makes it feel like you're begging for money, which I want to be clear I'm not doing here. This is just, since we're talking about the subject, I am in a position where I am at the start of running a business, and when you start running a business, you don't make a lot of money. So I'm getting by. Like, things are fine. I'm not concerned about income or anything like that. But I don't have a lot of money to put towards, like, I can't just go like, oh, let's buy a van and then do it up. That would be more expensive than just buying a relatively budget shitbox car that I can drive down in. So it's one of those things that I'd love to do, but it's just not probably viable at the very least for 12 months or something like that. Maybe I get down to that later on. Strife says it's not a charity. I'm sub to you as
Get Ed a Close Order logo magnet fund.
Thank you very much, Stack. I appreciate that. Oh, fuck, I'm throwing myself off. What do we got? Big magnet sheet with the Close Order for whoever's car. Oh, I see. I missed the first con. Yeah, so you get like a slap-on sticker, like having a magnetic logo for a car that I own would be cool, so that I could take it off when I'm not, being micro celebrity. That would be fun. Van life vlogs incoming. I have to admit, I have watched some of those. I don't know that I'd necessarily want to make them, but yeah, I have enjoyed watching them. Content will just be.
Wait, he has magnet stack?
Thank you, Amy. No, I don't. So what he was saying was I should get a Close Order logo printed on some magnetic backing, and then I could slap that on the car and go from there. Vesper says, "Is your future just going to be? Is your future just going to tournaments to stream them and cast them?" No, absolutely not. I want to continue to go to tournaments. I think it's very important for what I enjoy. Tournaments are my favorite thing. Like, I have the most fun in my life at this time playing in tournaments, and I think it's also important as a coach because I do think that I'm a high level player, and I think I can impart my my knowledge and my ability to play with people, and I think a lot of that comes down to actively playing against good players and practicing. So I never want to transition to being just content. I think that would be very negative for my enjoyment, but also my ability to do it well. Yeah. You went hobby shopping for 2 hours and you're still live. Yeah. We got to the end of the tier list and we just started talking about plans, which is fine. It's nice. I like these sort of a little bit more off the cuff chats that do pop up sometimes. That is always nice to have. Oh, thank you, Sam. That's very kind of you. Again, being so British, this is almost what I was worried about when I did mention that something like a fan would be out of reach for a stretch goal. I definitely wasn't trying to fish for donations. Thank you, though. I appreciate you. £2 for tea. You know what? I might be able to get a tea for £2 actually. We're not talking about the YouTube cut that YouTube takes, but here in Nottingham, I might actually be able to get tea for £2 for somewhere. Maybe I'll make that a goal for tomorrow. Oh no, I'm really busy tomorrow. I'm coaching all day. A van down by the river. Ah, yes, the classic Chris Farley. It's not a charity. I can't write the sub off on my taxes. I don't know how American taxes work, but maybe you can. You take value in entertainment. Thank you, Vesper. I appreciate that. Close order merch. Yeah, so I have plans for what I'd like to do with some stuff. There are various roadblocks that I've been looking at, and it's not been a #1 priority. Again, just in terms of like how things are a lot better now. When I started the coaching, I was struggling quite a lot. So it's been a lot of just sort of make sure that the coaching gets off the ground and then sort of work from there. But I'm thinking April 2nd, I'd like to launch some stuff, not April 1st. The reason I say April is it's the start of the tax year, so I have opened Close Order as a business, but I'm not trading through the business. So I'd like to start trading through the business at the start of next year. I think that just makes sense. So April 2nd is a soft deadline I've set myself. Thank you, Vesper. I appreciate that. You didn't even make the Welshman say anything. He didn't even get value for your money. It's Strifey says would buy a Close Order mug. This one. I'd love to do dice. Dice are the thing that I'm most excited to do. I am running low on dice that I like, and if I buy loads of dice in bulk, I can write off the ones that I use and lose. Not like write off as an expense money wise, but just write off in terms of like I won't feel bad that I've lost them because I'm like, oh, I've got another 500 at home as I slowly sell them off. Does merch exist? Not yet. But I'd like to do some bits and pieces next year. I think drop shipping, the way that a lot of people do it, is probably the way to go. But had some issues getting it started, and then I didn't put a lot of effort into getting over that roadblock. Close Order coin. Oh god, I could go on. There's a cryptocurrency streaming website called like Pump and Dump or something. It's like the clue is in the name, and all you do is you create a cryptocurrency, use your platform either on there or through wherever else to promote it, and then when your viewers buy in, you dump. They take the hit, they lose their investment, and you make a chunk of money. It's one of the most ethically fucked things I've seen. It is true late stage capitalism because it's marketed as that. I don't understand why anyone would ever buy in. To be fair, I think a lot of us could use some Warhammer specific merch like artillery dice templates. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and like your work. Thank you. Who appreciate that. Yeah, so when I was looking at dice in terms of like working out what to price them at as well, because you want to be reasonably affordable but also make it worth the time of you putting it in, instead of it just being like, oh, I make 5p per die, and then you're like, is all of the time and effort that I've put in worth it? Artillery dice really skew the maths on it. So yeah, I don't know what the best way to do it. I think the problem is dice have a lead time on making them, and you get different prices depending on how many dice you do. So I was wondering for next year whether it'd be worth doing a Kickstarter as an initial, so that you could just be like, look, stretch goals. If we reach this goal, you will get, because it costs less to get the base dice. I can also chuck in an artillery die because the savings on the base dice are that. But the big problem I had with that is you have to really be up to date, or like if you're selling across the globe, your tax liabilities are a bit confusing. So I need to put more effort into actually looking at that. But again, it's just not something that I've super prioritized at the moment. The template market is criminally underrated. That's true. Some close order templates could be cool. And maybe by second edition, which is maybe when I actually manage to get those sorted by, maybe by second edition, templates will be worth using. You should do an army like Tabletop Tactics did, where people paint and send in the models for a community army of Skaven. That's cool. That would be cool. I didn't realize that was a thing. It's a shame I've got a Bretonnian army, because that would be perfect. Like, if people wanted to send in a single Bretonnian model, that would be very cool. I would have to look into getting a PO box. I would be uncomfortable giving out my home address where I stream from. But that's fine. That's something to... Tabletop Tactics, they did Purple Death Watch. That's very cool. That's very cool. Ooh, Renegade Crowns. That'd be a cool one. Could do like a Renegade Crowns army of mixed models. Matthew says, if you did a Kickstarter, I think a mini upgrades is missing STL market, like better horses for by models. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure I'm the person to do that, but I don't disagree with you. I think that is a niche that someone could fill. So that PO box stat, yeah, absolutely. I wonder how much it costs for a PO box. Let's not Google stuff in the screen that's currently on screen. I've been usually pretty good at that, actually. I feel like I'm getting the hang of this stream malarkey. I probably have streamed a lot. Wow, £30 to £45 a month for a PO box. That's frankly ridiculous. Yeah, I'd have to have a specific use for it if I wanted to set one of those up. It'd be easy enough to find its designer, split the dollary dues. Matthew, you're English. Split the pounds. PO boxes are affordable. I've lived a few years of alternate lifestyle without fixed residence, so it was necessary but not that expensive. Yeah, it's definitely something that I could afford to put in, but it's just another cost. When you're doing this, there's a surprising amount of cost. So I pay, I don't pay for editing software. I think Microsoft Clipchamp is incredible for a free software. I'm very impressed by it. But I pay for a Canva subscription. I pay for a Streamlabs subscription. I think there's another one in there just in terms of like actual video stuff. And then there's various other bits and pieces that I put into. Split the pounds into what? Half pounds. Pennies, that's it. That's it. Unit of weight equals money. Well, yep. Yep. Anyway, it's been lovely to sit and have a chat with you all. And you know what? We were sat, sort of peaking around high 60s, low 70s for the stream. And the actual sitting here and talking was sat at 60 for the whole time. So obviously just having a chat is as interesting as voting on a tier list of spell laws. And you know what? I don't disagree. I enjoy them. You're impressed by the quality of the streams. That's really nice of you to say, Amy. I was fortunate, just a little bit of background lore that I guess I've talked about before. Very professional, other than the green screen in the background. Yeah, it's better than it was. I'm slowly improving my living and content quality of life. Over here, just off camera, a big thing for me that I did was I bought a water filter with a cask tap, so I can just have good quality water, because Nottingham water is terrible, which sounds really dumb, but for like 25 quid has massively improved my quality of life because I'm sat here far too much. I've got a walking treadmill that I need to clear some space for as well, so I need to do that, and it'll help my workflow. But yeah, before I started this channel, I was making content with 6++ on their channel. So having a little bit of a lead-in was really nice, and I'd watched a lot of the content creators that I enjoy or have enjoyed over the years have talked about the realities of streaming. So I think I had a pretty good realistic expectation going in of what I was going to have to do, the effort I was going to have to put in, and the sort of things that might work. Appreciate that, Vespa. Yeah, Strifey had fun with a little stream cameo the other day. The beard demands more airtime. Fantastic. Oh, Lewis perpetually super quiet microphone. I think it's probably my fault, not Lewis's, but we get there. It was getting on my nerves because people weren't pointing it out, and then I'd get shitty comments in the chat. And I'm not saying that like it's the fault of the viewers, but I was like, how is this group of people not bothered, and then this group of people are? The comments after the stream ended, but I think I've mostly nailed down, remembering to do mic checks beforehand, unless I'm super rushed or breaking things. But yeah, things are moving in a positive direction overall, and yeah, I just really grateful for the opportunity that I've got. My quality of life, obviously, I need to get out and walk more, and or just get out and do more stuff and various other bits and pieces. But like, I've never, since being an adult and a full-time working adult, had such good quality of life in terms of I'm not commuting 2 hours a day, getting up super early for a job that I do not enjoy. So there's a lot of good stuff going on now, and yeah, hopefully it'll just keep going in the right distance. All right, I'm going to call it there because I have a very busy day tomorrow in terms of coaching. Got 3 coaching sessions, which is fun. So got to get up and do some early work in terms of that, and then Friday's a little bit more clear. And yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to put out on Friday. I've got a couple of ideas. I've got a really good idea for a video, but it's going to take me a while to record because it's something that I actually have to script, because I'm going to try and keep each section to a certain time. So I need to work on that one. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. You'll see something from me on Thursday, and then you'll see a stream from me on Friday, and then I'm going to enjoy watching the League of Legends finals on Sunday. Gonna have a great time.